Okay, there you go. Okay. All right, let's go with our nope, 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 nope. Screen capture. Screen capture. Okay. Okay, so we're live, right? Correct? Maya? Okay, good. Okay, KK. All right. There we go. Okay. So, since we're doing a licensure exam focused lecture, I want you guys to be I want you guys to be comfortable, okay? Comfortable. Sit back, relax, and just listen to the lecture. If you have questions, you can send it to any of my three kind of favorite students. I don't want to call them my favorite students because I don't want to be. You could send it to Patrick. Patrick is the only one who can interject. Okay, or you can send it to Moyo. Okay, will that be okay, Patrick? You'll be my right hand, my second right, my left hand man. Okay, because my right hand man is Moyo. Okay, so all right. So, a licensure exam focused lecture in histotechnology. Here we go. Starting 4 minutes. What do we want to learn first? So, when we're studying histotechnology, we don't want to be focused more on the pathology, but more on what we do as medical technologists in the Philippines, okay? Or medical laboratory scientists. So, first thing that you need to remember is, of course, we have to study fresh tissues. Okay, so this includes your gross examination. Okay, so we always come through the process first, right? We do gross examinations, and we sometimes call fresh tissue examination as the macroscopic studies. Okay, so that's what we do first, and this includes three things. Okay, we have three methodologies in which we do that. Rather, four. Sorry, we have four methodologies. This includes teasing. Sorry, I didn't start the slideshow. There we go. Didn't start the slideshow. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay. So, four methodologies. This includes teasing or dissociation. That's what you basically that's what you do when you're students. Um, you have a you have a dissecting needle and you place it on a glass slide, and then you just look at what's going on in the macroscopic level. We have the squash preparation or crushing technique or squash preparation, within which you just have two slides and you basically press these two slides together and sandwich the tissue sample that you got and look at it in the microscope. Look at both impressions in the microscope at the same time. Okay, and then smear preparation is quite difficult, mostly what we do in contemporary laboratories right now. We either do streaks, okay, or you spread it out, or you have a pull apart method. So pull apart method, question for you guys. What's the difference between squash preparation and pull apart? Well, basically, for pull apart, you rely on the diffusion of the sample first before you pull the and you pull the samples in a you pull the slides in a perpendicular manner. Okay, so for squash technique, you just press it, pull it apart, pull it apart. But for take it off top to bottom, right? As if you're removing a lid. For pull apart, you are sliding them against each other, towards the opposite direction. Do you get the difference between the two? And am I going fast for you guys? Um, Not no. Okay. So that's the difference that's the difference because I had a student once. She asked me, "What's the difference, sir, between pull apart? You just press the two things together and then you just remove the two slides." But the method on which we do that is quite different because you are making a smear with pull apart, while in squash preparation you are making an impression against the two slides. You are squashing it. You are forcing the sample to exit out of whatever encapsulation it has. Okay, that's bad. That's good for cystic samples where there's fluid inside. Pull apart is more better on liquid samples like pleural fluids or peritoneal fluids, right? Okay, so clear? We're clear on that one. Okay, let's move on to touch preparation. So touch preparation is quite is another thing that we usually get in the laboratory. So this is usually for microbiological studies, or we just wanted to see if it's we just wanted to see what's on the surface level of the tissue. We don't really expect we don't expect to see malignancies in this one most of the time. Okay, so I've been working in the laboratory, and most of the time this is done in microbiology and hematology. You rarely see cancer cells or malignancy related cells in a touch preparation or an impression smear. Okay, so what do? You touch it. You basically take a sample of use take a sample from your sample cup, and then you just press it on the slide. Whatever impression it makes, that's what you're going to look at in the microscope. Clear? So far it's clear. Not too fast. All right. Sir, ba't nagmamadali kayo? Saan ang lakad? Wala akong lakad, class. Ano ba? Dalawang subject sa isang araw. Kayo naman. Okay? Gusto ko ano ninyo, ang tuition ninyo ay gamit na gamit. Okay? So fresh frozen sections, these are basically what you do when you have a cold microtome outside of the operation theater, or we call it operating room in the Philippines. Okay? All right? Okay? So we'll have a separate discussion for fresh frozen sections. Okay? So fresh frozen sections is sim is important. One thing that you need to remember, it's been popping up in the uh, PRC exams, is that they ask a question: which of the following techniques done in the histology section is considered stat? So of course, it's frozen section. Okay, so very important to remember. It's utilized in rapid diagnosis. Okay, it's utilized in rapid diagnosis. Okay, next, it's recommended for lipid and nervous tissue. You'll see why later. And it's mainly used for breast, testicle, and brain tissues. Breast, testicle, and brain tissues. Sir, do we need to remember that the types of tissues? You should, but I've never seen a student come back to me and give me a post board exam commentary that they said that, oh, all of the following are tissues tested with frozen sections. No, it's not like that. But this is based on experience. Okay, so this is based on experience as well as what I looked at in the BOC manual for histotechnologists. Okay. Next, the blade thickness is something that you need to remember in the board exam. It's 10 to 15 micrometers, and the setup is usually set at 10 to -10 to -20 degrees Celsius. Okay. Now, most important thing that you need to remember is the freezing agent. Sir, ano ba ang mga freezing agents na yan? Freezing agents are something that you used, are the chemicals that you use to induce, basically you harden the tissue so that you can cut it easily. And look at it this way, class. Pag bone tissue ang ginamitan ko ng frozen section, sa tingin nyo makakat ko? Di ba hindi? Kaya tingnan nyo, oh, mainly used for breast, testicle, and brain tissues. Anong pinagkaiba nila amongst the other types of tissues? Mataas yung lipid content niya. 'Di ba? Kaya nga ayan, oh, recommended for lipids and nervous tissue. Kita nyo, class, kasi yung microtome, kasi pag na-frozen siya, 'di ba? Pag kinat natin, hindi ganoon kalaki yung damage sa microtome knife natin. So see, there is a level of there's a certain level of what do you call this, of common sense there talaga. So gagamit tayo ng ano natin. Sabi, bakit kaya bone tissue yung nakalagay dun? Siguro bone tissue, mababali yung ano, kasi kailangan mo pang i-decalcify, di ba? Ganon, no? Di ba? Advanced na kaagad siya. Napunta na kaagad ng decalcification. Di ba? Okay, so freezing agents that we use liquid nitrogen. This is the most common. Yan yung pinaglalaruan ng mga students ko dati nung naglalab pa ako sa Pilipinas. Pinaglalaruan nila yan, lalagyan mo ng tubig tapos uusok. Okay? And other ones, no, normally they don't ask this in the board exams, the other ones, but just for reference, you guys add it to your notes. They use isopentane, or some laboratories they use isopentane, carbon dioxide gas, and aerosol sprays. Okay, now we move on to the tissue processing. section of the discussion, don't forget the tissue processes. Okay? Don't forget the tissue processes. Ano yung pinaalala ko sa inyo class dati? FDC, di ba? FDC, SSM. Ano yung FDC, SSM? Sige, sino makakasagot nun for me? Yung ano ko, yung pinasa ng aking teacher dati, aking professor dati, sinishare ko sa inyo ngayon. Shout out to Edison Ramos, RMT, MPH, for sharing this with me hanggang ngayon. Kahit nagtuturo na ako, dala ko pa din ng ano niya, piece of information na binigay niya sa akin. What is FDC, SSM? O, di ba? Ang daling alalahanin, hindi mo na makakalimutan. Di ba? Ano, class? Let's start from the very beginning. Sige, Patrick. Mhm. Oh, 'di ba? Tapos FDC, SSM, 'di ba? 'Di ba, 'di ba, 'di ba? Don't forget yung FDC natin, lagyan natin ng ano, lagyan natin lagi ng to the power of 2. Bakit to the power of 2? Kasi meron tayong decalcification process, 'di ba? For some samples that are highly calcified, 'di ba? Like bone samples, okay? All right. So there are types of tissue processes, types of tissue processors. Supposed to be like this is supposed to be tissue processors. This is your can type or your cylindrical tissue processor, most common in laboratories that I've worked in the Philippines and in the Middle East. This one I think is something that I'm new to. I didn't know about that until last semester when Mark Segi told me that a certain hospital that he interned in had that particular type of model. So that is something that I'm new to. That's new to me. Okay. And lastly is this one. This one is more on it doesn't. This is a type of tissue processor where you don't move the cell. The tissues don't move in a carousel or they're not placed in a bucket, but rather they are sort of soaked in the chemicals. So the chemicals are pumped in this particular container, in this container over here, this vat over here. So there's a vat there that pushes that drowns the samples in the chemicals, whether it's for fixation and or for clearing. It doesn't matter. There's a protocol also. That's the reason why there are computers. You see a computer system there or a monitor there. Okay, so if you were asked the question, okay, if you're asked the question, which of the following, okay, I want you guys to do a self-study on this one because models like this are different, okay? So in this case, I only grabbed this from Leica, okay, from Leica. This is a tissue liquid processor. The term is liquid processor, okay? Carousel processor, a linear processor, or a tissue bucket processor, and of course the liquid tissue processor, liquid transfer processor. So those are the types of tissue processors that you have. Carousel, linear or bucket processors, and lastly is your mm, liquid tissue processors. Okay, let's move on to the processing of tissues. So again, FD seat, we already know that, trimming, sectioning, and staining, mounting. Okay, so clear on this one? Clear? Kaya FD seat, okay? SSM, clear? Thumbs up. Ay, taray, nag-thumbs up talaga sila. Carlo Ruiz Dizon, okay? He is new. Shelo, I think I'm familiar with Shelo, right? I think I know Shelo already. Shelo, hi! Where's Shelo? Where are you, Shelo? I haven't... Hi! O, diba? Na-miss ko yan si Shelo. Labeling, don't forget the labeling process, of course. Okay, let's start with tissue fixation. We'll just breeze through tissue fixation because if you already attended my class last year, you know where to look for the lecture in depth, right? Right? So please share na lang natin class dito sa Moyo ano na lang, paki copy and paste naman for the other ones that didn't attend my class last semester, my lecture on paki copy paste na lang diyan sa ating ano sa ating ano yung link ng lecture. Okay? So we're not going to go in depth on this one. I'm just going to focus on what's usually asked in the board exams. Okay? In depth is for those people who really want to specialize on whatever topics they're weak on. And that's okay. Okay? But because we're rushing it in 4 hours, in 4 hours time, I want you guys to understand what's going to be asked, what's not going to be asked, what is slightly important but not really asked in board exam most of the time. Okay, so first things first, fixation. Fixation is the most critical step. You are going to see that in questions in your board exams. Okay, so please do not forget about that. Okay, please do not forget about that. And as per um, as per as per the BOC manual, the quality of the section in the slide is as good as the quality of the fixed tissue specimen. Do not forget about that one. Okay. Now, the primary purpose, there are two types. There are primary and secondary purposes for fixation. Primary purpose is to preserve, okay, either morphology or chemical integrity of the cell, or the secondary one, which is to harden and to protect the tissue and thus making it easier to cut. Okay, clear? Clear. So there's primary and secondary purposes. Bakit naka-highlight, sir? Bakit naka-underline, sir? Kasi yan yung dapat ninyong tandaan as students of this particular lecture. Okay? Next, for things for things that's prevented by medyo lasing ata ako niyan, binaliktad ko. For fixation prevents four things pala dapat. Okay? So it prevents degeneration, decomposition, putrefaction, and distortion. Okay? So degeneration, dying of the cell, decomposition, cells rot, putrefaction, there's a stench involved and chemicals are imbalanced. Okay, and distortion is when you stain it, you don't see what is usually observed in a well fixed sample. Okay, so DDDP. Okay, all right, clear. Now, let's talk about the main factors involved in tissue fixation. Hydrogen ion concentration. When we're talking about hydrogen ion concentration, we are talking about two letters, pH. So it's at pH 6.8 usually. Okay? 6 to 8, sorry, 6 to 8. Bakit 6 to 8, sir? Akala ko ba, sir, ang pinaka-favorite ng mga histotechnologist is normal buffered saline or neutral buffered saline or saline. Ang arte dito, saline pala, class. Dito sa Amerika, ang tawag nila yung class, hindi saline. Diyan sa Pilipinas, ang tawag saline. Dito sa US, saline. Ang arte, di ba, class? Anyways, so the ideal pH or the hydrogen concentration is 6 to 8. Okay? Temperature, room temperature usually for routine surgical specimens. That is different from frozen sections, class, ha? Frozen sections. Kaya nga, dinagdag namin dito ang routine surgical specimens, class. Okay? Routine. Okay? Usually, for electron microscopy, it's at 0 to 4 degrees Celsius. Or histochemistry, when you are demonstrating the chemical properties contained within the cell. Okay? We'll talk about that later. The thickness of the section is also important. Usually it's 1 to 2 square millimeters for electron microscopy. And for light microscopy, its thickness should be at around 2 square centimeters. Okay? So parang ang kapal. Thickness ng section, class. Section ang pinag-uusapan, hindi yung lumalabas sa okay? Ayan. Okay, osmolality is basically the concentration in relation to the freezing point of the particles within a particular solution. So it's supposed to be isotonic. Your solution, your fixative should be in an isotonic solution. Why? If it's hypertonic or hypotonic, it will cause the cells to have morphological degeneration. And the concentration, of course, is that for most samples in histopathology, we use formaldehyde and it's concentrated at 10%. Okay, not gonna delve deep into the other fixatives. They have their own purposes, and I'll talk about them as we go along. Okay, so for formaldehyde, I want you guys to remember formaldehyde, normal NBF, normal buffered formalin is 10% all the time. Okay, you can't go wrong with 10%. Okay, now the duration of the fixation is around 24 hours mostly. Okay, now, there are types of fixatives. It's according to according to composition, we have what? We have a simple fixative, which is just one fixative, add tissue. Compound fixative is like is like uh, two types of fixative at once. Okay. Now, according to action, we have two types, microanatomical and cytological. Okay? Microanatomical, you're basically doing you're basically dissecting from the name itself, you're dissecting something from the microscopic level. You want to see what is actually being preserved by the fixative. Okay? For cytological, it preserves specific parts of the microscopic elements. We're either looking at the nucleus, we're looking at the cytoplasmic components, or we are testing the histochemical properties of the constituents in the cell, or solutes in the cells. Okay, microanatomical. All right. Never forget your macromolecules, okay? If you want to demonstrate lipids, you do frozen sections, okay? If you want to demonstrate lipids, what did I say earlier? Lipids, frozen section, breast, testicles, and brain samples, okay? Or nervous tissue samples. If you want carbohydrates, or if you want to demonstrate carbohydrates, you want to use alcoholic fixative. Okay, alcoholic fixatives. Pakidagdagan ng S yan class. Wrong grammar si sir. And lastly, if you want to demonstrate protein, you use formaldehyde or NBF because NBF is your best friend. Kaya nga 'di ba BF, best friend, 'di ba? O 'di ba? 'Di ba may naalala na kayo class? May naalala na kayo. Maganda class, witty na naman. Patrick maganda. Funny, Patrick. Okay? NBF ka, di ba? NBF. Uy, new best friend. O, di ba? If it's protein. Okay? Never forget your macromolecules class. Okay? So, ano yan? Yung lipids, carbohydrates, and chon. Ano yung chon? CHON. Chon. Carbohydrates, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Ano yon? Basic components ng isang protein or an amino acid. So kaya laging ginagamit ng mga professors natin CHON. Okay? Now, let's start with the fixatives one by one, starting with aldehyde fixatives. So obviously, we're going to discuss formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is most common and widely used. Okay? Widely used pa, hindi wildly. Hindi nag-wild class, widely used. Okay? It's 10%. The recommended usage or the recommended concentration is 10%. And it's produced by the oxidation of methyl alcohol. Okay? Because you're going to get formalin first. When you oxidize it, formic acid first, and then you oxidize it, and then you form methyl alcohol. So basic organic chemistry, not really important for us. Kaya nga walang underline. 24 hours is the usual fixation time, as I've said earlier, and it's buffered at 7.0. Okay, clear? Is it clear, class? Clear? Very straightforward class, di ba? Memory work lang siya. Okay? Next, remember, prolonged storage may induce precipitation. You use, you either filter it or you add 10% methanol. Ano yun? Ano yun, sir? Pag prolonged storage kasi may namumuo sa ilalim. 'Di ba? May namumuo sa ilalim. Kaya maglalagay ka ng 10% methanol para ma-oxidize yung namuo sa ilalim. Okay? So bakit sir? Tinanong ba yan sir sa board exam? Yes. There is one particular year, way back in the year 2010s, pataas, tinanong siya. Precipitated formaldehyde, 10% NBF, precipitates in a stock solution of NBF, 10% NBF was observed by laboratory assistant. Which of the following actions should be done by the technologist in charge. O, di ba? Mga ganun na mga tanungan class, di ba? So, kaya ko siya nilagay dyan class. Okay? Next. 10% formal saline. Formal saline is basically used for CNS tissues and postmortem tissues for histochemical examination. Nothing else about that one. Okay, nothing else to do with that one. Um, Historically, they never really focused on formal saline. Okay, next. Removal of pigments. There are three methodologies. Who here knows the three methodologies on the how to remove your formalin pigments? Anybody? Pabibigyan natin ng +10 Sir Marco. Charit. Wala ba nandiyan ba si Sir Marco? Charit. Charit. Mahirap kasi siya eh. You have to have, nandiyan ba si Mark? Nasaan ba si, nandiyan ba siya? Wala. Wala kayo. Ay, nandiyan. Natutulog. Natutulog lang siguro yan. Charing. Ano? Kakausapin natin si Sir Marco para mabigyan kayo ng ng plus. Three methods. You have to have either Gregorius or the BOC self-study manual to be able to answer this. Ayoko, gusto ko tatlo. Grabe, 10 yung ibibigay sa'yo, tapos isa lang. Anong klase yun? Ano yun? Ngayon lang ako nakakita ang mga students nakikipag-barter. Nakikipag-barter. Parang nung nagtuturo ako dyan sa Pilipinas, pag hindi nakasagot, pinalalabas ko ng klase. Ngayon ako, nagbabarter na ngayon. Ano na, Patrick? Hindi mo maalala yung iba? Isa lang. Ah, ah, sorry. Oh, pwedeng mag-steal yung iba, wala. Sayang ang points. Malay niyo makapasa kayo bigla. Arian Dorothy, familiar face. Ilan ang alam natin? Aha. Parang lahat naman gumagamit ng ano. Hindi. I'm looking for a specific name, but if you use the chemicals, if you use those chemicals, you're only giving away one particular method. Wala na. Si Angela May Bay. Anong pangalan nito niya? Bayhon. Mhm. Mhm. Oh, that's not it. You didn't use the revised version ng Gregorius. Green pa rin ang libro mo, no? Ayon, card switch. Card switch. Card switch. Okay, very good. Kakausapin natin. Moyo, pakilista naman ang ating mamaya kakausapin natin. Guys, give your classmate a hand. Kaya, give her some love naman, class. Over naman yung love na yan, Patrick, ha? Medyo nakakahalata ako yan, Patrick. Medyo ano yan, ha? Thank you, Angel. Okay, so let's look at the methodology. So Cardo switch method, Lily's method, and picric acid. So Cardo switch method, you're using 70% alcohol and 70% ammonia water. Then wash with water. What's ammonia water, sir? Yan yung dilute version ng ammonia lang. Okay, 30% ammonia water. Um, Next is Lily's method that uses acetone, hydrogen peroxide, and ammonia water. Then we wash it with alcohol, 70% alcohol. Usually it's it's ethanol still with water. Okay? And then picric acid method is the most dangerous of them all kasi if picric acid dries out, it becomes explosive, which is a safety question for the ASCP, by the way, if you're taking the ASCP board, certification exams. Okay, next. Let's go one by one and the other ones. Okay? Bakit sir isang bagsakan mo lang siya binigay sa amin? Babasahin mo lang siya isa-isa. Yes, class. Babasahin ko lang siya isa-isa. 10% NBF, best friend mo yan. Okay? Recommended for preservation of surgical and postmortem samples for research. Best fixatives for tissues containing iron pigments. I have a question. What if in the board exams, they ask something different? what if they added favorite, ano, favorite body part ni, ano, favorite organ ni Patrick? Spleen. Okay? Spleen is high in blood supply. Tatawa si Mel. Tatawa din si Mel. Favorite niya yan, Mel, no? Last semester, no? Favorite niya yan, eh. Yung spleen na yan. So, spleen is, you know, nasaan ang spleen mo? Tayo ka nga, Patrick. Ituro mo sa mga tao kung nasa ang spleen mo. Pakita mo sa kanila kung nasa ang spleen mo. Ituro mo. Bawal. Sa OF lang daw niya. Sa OF lang daw niya. Okay. Anyways, let's continue. So yeah, if it's high, I want you guys to underline iron pigments, tissues containing iron pigments. Okay, because most of the time these are specimens that have a lot of blood supply, like the spleen, the liver, kidneys, and of course the heart. Okay, right. So lagay niyo na yun doon. Okay, mapapaisip kayo pa sa mga exam ko. Hay, ano ba yun? Bakit ang dami niyang ano? Ganon, di ba? Okay, next, formal corrosive. It is basically a combination of formalin and mercury, hence the term formal corrosive. It's used for post-mortem tissues. So after what do you call this? After dissection during what do you call it? Dissection of a cadaver, they usually put it in formal corrosive before. Okay, that was in the 1990s. Very rarely would you see that in CSI cases nowadays. Okay, kasi hindi na siya magano'n ka. Tsaka madami nang namamatay ngayon eh. And then alcoholic formalin is also known as gender's fluid. Okay, hindi siya gender fluid. Huwag masyadong lit. Hindi ganun ang discussion na to. Wala tayong discussion sa pagiging lit dito. Okay? Gender's fluid is used mostly for mucoid sample, and it can be used to fix sputum samples. Bakit? It coagulates mucus. Okay? It coagulates mucus. So it fixes sputum. Okay? Ano pa ba yung mga samples that are rich in mucus? Bigay nga kayo ng isang sample. Give me a pathologic state. A person with caseous tuberculosis, right? A patient with caseous tuberculosis, within which obviously this patient obviously this patient has already died. Okay, but for the purpose of studying what occurred during the person's death, they want to understand they to better understand it. You want to coagulate the mucus so you can see what happened to the remaining lung tissue, di ba? So yun. Glutaraldehyde is adding basically another carbohydrate molecule to the formaldehyde solution, and the 2.5% is used for small tissues, and for larger tissues it's 4%. Not really asked in the board exams. I want you to focus more on formal corrosive and formal sublimate. Okay? Because most of the time they will ask you that. And for alcoholic formalin or gender's fluid. Hindi siya gender fluid class. This is not that type of discussion. We're not talking about gender fluidity. Okay? Charing lang kayo ha. Okay, charing. Okay? Ay, bakit tina-touchscreen ko yung laptop ko? Wala pala ako sa iPad. Bakit ko tina-touchscreen? Nakita niyo ginanon ko. Sorry naman, class. Bakit ko tina-touchscreen? Okay. All right. Medyo ano ha, kita mo. All right. Now, move on to metallic fixatives. So ano ba yung mga metals natin na ano? Metals na ginagamit natin for fixation. Sige nga, class, heavy metals. I already mentioned one, mercury, right? The other one is chromate or potassium bichromate and lead. Okay? Lead. Sir, ba't hindi kasama yung ano, osmic acid, osmium tetroxide? Kasi hindi naman siya masyadong ano. Okay? Hindi naman siya masyadong important sa board exams. Bihira lang siya tinatanong, class. Huwag kayong ano. Okay? Kaya nga ang topic natin is board exam focused lecture. Okay? Mercury-based tayo. Okay? Let's start first with mercury chloride. It's the most common metallic fixative. It's recommended for renal tissue, fibrin, connective tissues, and the muscles. And it produces black precipitate. It's usually removed by 0.5% iodine and 70% ethanol. Then we decolorize the iodine using an absolute alcohol solution. Zenker's fluid is the is one example of a mercury chloride based mercury based fixative, and has 1%. It has glacial acetic acid used as a pre-soak solution or fixative. You'll see primary fixation and secondary fixation. You'll hear these things when we're discussing along. So when I say pre-fixation or primary fixation, usually you'll start with with either glacial acetic acid or some other type of acetic acid solution. Okay, but most of the time in histology laboratories, they use glacial acetic acid. Okay, so Zenker's fluid requires requires prefixation or primary fixation, and it's recommended for liver, spleen, connective tissues, fibers, and nuclei. Okay, almost the same as mercury chloride. Okay, next, recommended. This is the recommended sample. This is the recommended type of fixative to use for trichrome staining. Okay, we'll discuss trichrome staining later. But we move on to the next one. Zinkerformol, or also known as Hellis solution. So from the name itself, it's a mercury chloride solution with an addition of formaldehyde. Okay. Now, it's an excellent microanatomic fixative for pituitary glands and the bone marrow. I want you guys to remember other name, composition, and what's it for. Okay. When you hear Zenker formol, what's its composition? Mercury based. It's mercury based. Mercury chloride usually, plus formol. So it has formaldehyde. Okay? So sometimes, because sometimes they will ask you questions, Zenker formol. What is the composition? Okay? What's the other name? Heli solution. What's Heli solution for? Microanatomic fixation of the pituitary glands and the bone marrow. Okay? Let's move on. Brown pigments may be produced if fixed more than 24 hours. Okay. The reason for that is you want to lyse the blood samples. Oh, the reason for for this brown pigments is because of the lysis of RBCs. And to solve that, you basically use the picric acid method or use sodium hydroxide. Okay. We also have Heidenhain-Sousa. Okay. It's recommended for tumor biopsies, especially the skin. Okay, and it's an excellent cytologic fixative. Okay, basically, if you're studying the skin, obviously it's cytology. Bakit, class? Yung mga nag-intern, bakit cytology na kagad siya? Kasi class, di ba? Ang liit ng sample, di ba? Minsan maliit lang na kuntil yung ibibigay sa inyo, di ba? Sino na mga nag-intern dito sa sa histopathology? Alam ko ang trabaho ng mga intern sa Pilipinas mag-receive ng sample, 'di ba? Lagyan ng label, 'di ba? Mag-assist sa gross examination, tahiin ang paa kapag binuklat na ni doktor. Na ganun ba kayo, class? Nagtahi kayo ng paa? Patrick, nagtahi ka ng paa? Taray, ito na siya. At least moving forward ka na, class. At least moving forward na, Patrick, no? Lilzo. Lilzo. Si Lilzo, bakit thumbs down, Lilzo? Ano yan? Mag-catch up ka tayo, Lilzo. Hey, Lilzo, where you at? Bakit thumbs down, Lilzo? Anong kalokohan yan, Lilzo? Ah, okay. Well, you will get there time, I suppose. Anyways, that's what you usually do. Hydrogen Sousa leaves a black precipitate also. Okay. And we move on to the next one, which is B5 fixative. I want you guys to remember B5. B5. Ano yun, sir? B5. Bone marrow. Okay? Bone marrow. B5. Diba? B for bone marrow. Pero sir, kasama na yung Zenker fluid. Zenker formal or Hellis fluid. Dagdagan mo ng pituitary pag ano. Diba? Madali nang maalala, class. Diba? You just have to make associations wherever it's relevant. Diba? Kahit walang kakwenta-kwenta katulad ko. Okay? Walang kakwenta-kwenta yung mga ano katulad ng mga binibigay ko. Okay? Next. What is desenkerization? Okay? Desenkerization basically means what? To remove the process of removing the brown pigments left behind by mercury-based fixatives. Okay? We either use the iodine treatment, okay? Or and then thiosulfate wash. Actually, hindi siya methods. It's actually steps. I retract my previous statement. Okay, omit this one. This methods. It has two steps. You first douse it in iodine, and then you wash it off with with thiosulfate. Okay. Chromite fixatives. We'll go with chromite fixatives. Well, is it very fast, class? Masyado bang fast-paced ngayon? Hindi katulad last time. Okay, kayang-kaya nila. Parang familiar din sa akin si Inhinyero. Naging student ko na din ba si Inhinyero or Ingenyero? Ah, yes, yes. Parang kinumpleto lang niya yung pangalan niya ngayon. Parang last time, ano siya, under an alias lang siya last time, no? Anyways, let's move on to chromate fixatives. So chromate fixatives, it's the first thing that you need to remember is chromic acid, potassium dichromate, and regards. It's supposed to be not regards, it's regard. Okay, okay. Wait, regard. It's regards. Okay. Please change your notes. Okay. Regards, not regards, or all otherwise known as Muller's solution. Okay. It's recommended for chromatin, mitochondria, and Golgi bodies. Okay. Orth's fluid recommended for the degenerative process, for demonstrating early degenerative process and tissue necrosis. Okay. So if you hear terms ischemia, okay, or rhabdomyolysis, you'll probably see the word Orth's fluid as part of the histopathology portion of it. Okay, if you want to delve deep into that kind of discussion, please go to the link Moyo has provided for you guys after the show. After the show talaga. Para all right. Nice to know information. I don't really like to talk about nice to know information, especially for this particular type of especially for this type of discussion because we're really at a time crunch. But I want you guys to remember pheochromocytomas. Pheochromocytomas um, are tumors in your adrenal glands, and they are usually diagnosed by demonstrating chromaffin cells or chromaffin granules. And the best fixative to demonstrate chromaffin granules is using Ort's fluid. Okay? So, always put this into mind. Pheochromocytoma, chromaffin granules. Chromaffin granules is best preserved with Ort's fluid. Okay? So those are the things that I want you guys to remember if that is going to be in part of the board exam. Now let's go with lead-based fixatives. Lead as in lead lang siya class. It's recommended for mucopolysaccharides. Therefore, this is a immunohistochem. This type of tissue will be subjected to histochemical staining. Lead carbonate is the black pigment produced during fixation, and it can be removed by, of course, adding acetic acid. Okay? Suka. Sukang puti. Okay? Next, move on to picric acid fixatives. So, picric acid fixatives are excellent for um, demonstration of glycogen, and they impart, of course, a yellow color to the tissue. And to solve that particular issue, we want to add a 70% ethanol followed by a wash of 5% disulfate. Okay? And the most common is Bowen solution, which is recommended for embryo and pituitary biopsies, as well as glycogen, as I mentioned before. And then we have also Brazil's alcoholic picroformal, which can be used for glycogen studies as well. Okay? Next, important safety information. If you're going to take the ACP board examination, there is a certain part of the exam where it tells you about safety things, that what things that you need to remember, chemicals that you need to be aware of, and one of the most common questions is which of the following substances is explosive? It's usually picric acid fixatives, okay? Especially when they're dry, okay? That's why we always want them to be in a highly aqueous state, away from sunlight to prevent from drying, and away and in a place where it's slightly humid. Okay, next we have glacial acetic acid. Why is it called glacial acetic acid? Because at room temperature it solidifies. Normally it is used in conjunction with another fixative. That's the reason why it's also known as what? A primary fixative. Secondary fixation is followed by an actual fixative. Most of the time we use glacial acetic acid to prepare or to pre-soak. Parang ano lang yan, pag naglalaba ka, di ba nagpi-pre-soak tayo? Di ba class? Parang ganun. So let's think about it like that. We're pre-soaking the tissue so that it penetrates faster. The secondary fixative penetrates faster, and it becomes much and the efficacy exponentially increases. Okay. Next, things that you need to discuss about other than that is that it solidifies at room temperature, normally at around 17 degrees Celsius. Other alcoholic fixatives include methanol, isopropanol, ethanol, Carnoy's fluid, and newcomer's fluid. Okay, methanol is excellent for dry and wet smears, specifically for blood smears and bone marrow tissue. Okay, wet and dry smears. Sir, ano yun, sir, yung wet and dry smear? Pag sinabi natin dry smear, wet siya dati, tapos pinatuyo lang natin. This is what usually done when we're staining something like blood, right? Di ba pinatutuyo niyo siya, class, di ba? Ganon. Okay, wet and dry smears. Okay, isopropanol is usually for touch preparations. Okay, mapapansin nyo class, kaya never ako naglalagay ng hindi na ako naglalagay ng alcohol. For example, natuluan ako ng dugo pag kumukuha ako ng dugo sa pasyente. Matagal na akong nakakakuha, last time nakakuha ng dugo sa pasyente, pero ever since nalaman ko tong particular piece of information na to, hindi na ako naglalagay ng alcohol. Yung gaganyanin ko ng alcohol swab yung natuluan ng lab coat ko. Bleach na kaagad, class. Okay? Bakit, class? Kasi mafi-fix yung sample dun sa damit nyo. Okay? So, ano siya. So, basically, baka malay nyo, hindi pala ang future natin, hindi pala sa pagme-medtech, no? Sa fashion pala tayo mapupunta, no? At least may important kayong information na chemistry na ano, may na-impart ako sa inyo, di ba? Di ba? Taray, no? Taray. Fashion industry. Dahil kasi ano ko yan, isa sa mga ano ko yan, sa passions ko yan, hindi ako nakapasok for a particular reason. I won't tell it now because we're doing a lecture, and girl, that is just so crass. Charit. We are classy women. Charing lang. Okay, let's move on na class. What else? Carnoy's fluid is important because it's usually still used for chromosomal studies and lymph glands and urgent biopsies. Urgent biopsies, ano yun sir? Akala ko ba ang ginagamit lang natin is frozen sections. Meron din tayong mga urgent biopsies because sometimes you need less than 24 hours to fix a sample. And Carnoy's fluid is very much used, uh, mainly because it doesn't have that much health hazards, as well as environment. It's not an environmental hazard. Um, it's not explosive. Okay, so that's the reason why it's important that a lot of big laboratories that do process a lot of tissues have a stock of Carnoy's fluid because it's a rapid fixative. So for example, diagnosis is needed with less than 24 hours. Is that possible, sir? Yes, frozen sections. But in the case where frozen section is not available, at least the laboratory should be stocked with Carnoy's fluid because it is the most rapid, within which the duration is around 6 hours to 12 hours. Okay, the most rapid fixative. Right? They'll ask you that one. I highlighted it, class. Okay, it's already in all caps there is no reason for you to say that, sir, hindi yan diniscuss. Check. Check. Okay, let's talk about osmium tetroxide. Osmium tetroxide, it's also known as Fleming's chemicals, Fleming solution, or Fleming solution without acetic acid. So Fleming solution, the one with acetic acid, is used for nuclear stains. Fleming solution without acetic acid is used for cytoplasmic fixative. So we want to see the nucleus if you add acetic acid. The nucleus will be destroyed if you add acetic acid. So basically, that's it. Trichloroacetic acid is also used. Nothing much on that. If you want to learn more about that, I have a lecture. I have a lecture prepared. You could watch it. But historically, ever since I've been doing this, nobody has mentioned trichloroacetic acid in the board exams. Acetone is commonly used for enzymatic studies. Histochemistry again. Okay, so just important things to remember: secondary fixation, placing an already fixed tissue in a second fixative. This is basically when you say already fixed tissue, you either add it in a glacial acetic acid solution and then you add it into its permanent home, so to speak. Okay, or bringing or removing it from pre-soak. Okay, post-chromatization is a form of secondary fixation which utilizes 2.5 to 3% potassium dichromate as a mordant. Sir, meron din palang mordant sa histopathology. Yes. You'll hear that word over and over again once we discuss staining. Okay? Washing out is removing excess fixatives. You can either use water or just tap water, or you could use a 5 to 10% 50 to 70% alcohol and alcoholic iodine. Okay? Now, I don't want you guys to focus much on this one, but just in case, the size and thickness of the tissue is important. The presence of mucus, that's why we use what type of fixative again? What type of fixative? The one that coagulates mucus. Oh, nakalimutan na nila. What's that fixative again? The one that coagulates mucus so that we can fix sputum. Gender. Ay, nandito pa pala yung Junakis ko. Ay, ayan ang Junakis ko. Gender fluid yan. Nandiyan pala yung Junakis ko. Hindi ako nakapag-reply sa'yo kasi natabunan yung yung email mo sa akin. I'm so happy naman na pumasa ka. Manang-mana ka sa akin. Oh, sabi kasi ni Sir Marco the next day, tuturuan ko pa rin daw kayo sa susunod na semester. So sabi ko, makikita ko pa rin naman pala si Renmar. Sa kanya na ako magre-reply. Oh, personal ako. Hindi ako, ayoko na nagre-reply ng email, Renmar. My goodness, it's just so robotic and it's just not me. Yeah. Very Kylie Jenner. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, gender fluid, yes. Gender's fluid, yes. Okay, hindi gender fluid na discussion sa sociology, ah. Huwag kayong charotera. Mga students ko ngayon, mga echosera na eh. Okay? All right, next. Presence of fats, okay? Presence of blood, temperature, and agitation, okay? Next, methods resorted to if chemical fixation should be avoided. We can use freeze drying. Okay, it's also known as desiccation. We could use removal. Sorry, we could either use desiccation, which basically means removal of water, and we can also use the word quenching, which is rapid freeze drying. Okay. We can also use freeze substitution using Rossman's fluid or osmium tetroxide in 1% acetone for 1 to 6 days. This is not very important. This is not used clinically. Okay, this is what museums use. Okay, freeze substitution and fresh frozen tissue sectioning. Okay, so these are the things that you can do if chemical fixation is avoided. What is chemical fixation? Yun nga, the use of aldehydes, metals, lead, alcohols, osmium tetroxide, trichloroacetic acid. What else? What's the last one? I forgot the last one. Acetone. Okay, so if you forget sorry, I forgot chromates. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. Next one is decalcification. This is bonus for you guys. Usually they don't discuss this in many discussions pertaining to the board exam, but I will run through it. The most important thing about decalcification is we want to remove calcium and lime salts or lime salts rather, from the tissue to facilitate and ensure normal cutting of tissues. That is the main purpose of decalcification. We want to avoid injuries not only to yourself, but also to the microtome. Okay, the microtome can be injured, sir. Yes, the blade. Okay, the blade could be scratched. Okay, or the blade could be what? The blade could be destroyed if you did not decalcify a calcium enriched tissue. Okay, calcium may be removed by either the usage of acids, chelating reagents or agents, ion exchange resins, and or electrophoresis. I think last year I also discussed this one. Moyo, please do your thing. Pa-copy and paste na lang ng lecture diyan sa ano, diyan sa ating um diyan sa ating chat box. Okay? Thank you. Hugs, kisses. Let's move on. Okay, so decalcifying agents. Let's talk about decalcifying agents. The most common and the fastest is nitric acid. Okay, I mean, among the acid decalcifying agents, they are the most widely used among all of them. Okay, and nitric acid is the most common and fastest. 5 to 10% is used, but we can also use aqueous one, the aqueous version. Okay, recommended for urgent biopsies and needle biopsies. We can also use formal nitric acid, which has formalin in it and is neutralized by 5% sodium sulfate. Okay? Bakit kailangan natin siya i-neutralize with 5% sodium sulfate? Because there is a yellow color imparted by formal nitric acid. Parenis fluid is another one. It's recommended for routine purposes. Okay? And I think that is what we use here in the University of Nebraska. I think I visited it a couple of months ago. They use Parenis fluid mostly when they're decalcifying samples. Okay, fluoroglucine nitric acid is the most rapid again. Okay, so lahat tong pinagsasabi ko under siya ng nitric acid. Okay, okay, class. We can also use another acid decalcifying agent, which is hydrochloric acid, and we could use von Ebner solution, which is a hydrochloric acid based decalcifying agent. It's recommended for teeth, small pieces of bone, because it doesn't penetrate much. Okay, formic acid can be used as well. It's recommended for autopsy materials, bone marrow, cartilage, and tissues studied for research purposes upon the addition of citric acid. We could also use trichloroacetic acid, sulfurous acid, and chromic acid. Special attention to chromic acid because it's not only used as a fixative, but it's also used as a decalcifying agent. What do we call this one? If it's also used as a fixative and as a decalcifying agent, it is known as a universal solution. You might come across this terminology. It's a universal solution. Okay? Sometimes they will ask you that question, which of the following is a universal solution? When you hear the word universal solution, it is a fixative that has what? Another function. Or it could be any type of reagent. You'll hear this over and over again when I discuss the chemicals that we're going to see later on in the discussion. Chelating agents. When we say chelating agents, the main thing what's happening here is that the calcium ions form weakly dissociated complexes with a resin or with a molecule such as EDTA. So it basically calcium binds to it and then it removes it from the tissue. That's what's happening here. Tinatanggal lang niya yung calcium. Kaya kinekelate. Okay? Pag narinig nyo kinekelate, Tagalogin na natin. Kinekelate. Pag kinekelate, tinatanggal yung calcium. You'll hear the word chelation also in hematology, specifically for sodium, what's that? What's inside your light purple taps? Ay, light blue taps for coagulation studies. Sige nga, maririnig nyo yun. Citrate, di ba? Mga ganon. Kaya marinig niyo yan pagka ano, sodium cyanide. But usually, the most important thing that you need to remember is that EDTA is used, particularly the brand name Versene. Okay, Versene is the most common. It will not bind to calcium at pH below 3.0, which basically means you've oversaturated your sample with an acid. Okay, so do not make your EDTA Versine, rather your Versine, too acidic. Okay, you have to buffer it to above 3.0. Otherwise, it won't bind to calcium. Okay, so EDTA inactivates alkaline phosphatase activity. Therefore, you can't use it for immunohistochemistry studies, though. But if you really want to, you can add magnesium chloride. Okay. Next, ion exchange resins. These are not chemicals that you add into in a liquid form. Basically, they are like beads. I think I showed a picture of that one last semester. We're not going to focus on that one, but it hastens the decalcification process by removing the calcium ions from formic acid containing decalcifying solutions. Okay, we also have electrophoresis. There's an electrophoresis setup. The main disadvantage of this one is that you can only use small fragments because the setup is too small. Okay, I think I also sent you guys a picture of that one. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, the factors affecting decalcification, that influence the concentration of decalcification. Concentration and volume of the decalcifying agent is important to take note of. If the concentration is not enough, decalcification takes longer, or it could be incomplete as you remove it. Temperature is also important. Mechanical agitation is important as well. That's why in many laboratories that processes a lot of tissue types, you'll see decalcification occur tissues being put in a bucket where there is a magnetic bead that swirls the that creates a whirlpool of decalcifying agent in it. I think you've seen these in the movies, right? Yung parang lalagyan lang ng pellet tapos may magnet na nag-iikot dun sa may pellet na yon para mahalo yung reagent. Ganun yung ginagamit nila for mechanical agitation. Kasi hindi pwedeng gamitin, masusunog ang kamay mo, nitric acid yun. 'Di ba? Okay, so the size of the tissue is also important. That's why you need to have like a small bits and pieces of tissue if you really want to study it or see if there is something in that particular sample. Usually sarcoma samples are are very much hard to detect, specifically because especially in the early stages. Usually if it's an osteopathic sarcoma, ano na siya, late stages na siya makikita na dito pala dapat kami kumuha. Kasi the bone material itself doesn't show any forms of bumps until the later stages of the disease progress, or of the malignancy rather. Okay. Now, to measure the completeness of the calcification, we can either use three methods. But we can either use physical or mechanical methodologies. Yun yung pipisil-pisilin, pinch method. Okay. We could use an X-ray. Okay. Highly calcified material will have um, will have will have a whitish background, and once the sample has been completely decalcified, you'll see that there's only a silhouette on it on an X-ray. That's for bougie hospitals. Chemical methodology is the less subjective version of among all of these, because it doesn't rely on, oh, it's squishy, I think I can cut it. No, this one it'll tell you, because a fluid becomes in calcium oxalate test, if there is incomplete decalcification, the calcium oxalate reagent will turn the reagent will turn the reagent rather will turn turbid. Okay, and for more information on that one, you need to go to the lecture that Moyo will provide later. Thank you, Moyo, in advance. Okay, next. Pakiano na lang, pakihanap na lang dun sa ano mo yun, tapos copy-paste natin dito yung link. Okay, next, dehydration. Dehydration is the removal of intracellular and extracellular water from the tissue. What is the purpose? We want to what? Dehydrate a sample to prevent it from rotting, right? Or to prevent it from what? Those three things. DDDP. Ano yung DDDP kanina? Sabi natin? Ano yung DDDP na pine-prevent fixatives? Patay, nakalimutan na nila. Because if there is water, DDDP can happen. Ano na yon? Yung may putrefaction kanina. Ano na? Decomposition. Ano na? Ala, nakalimutan na nila. Ala, class. Nakalimutan na nila. Kakaumpisa pa lang natin. Ano na? DDDP. Sinong makakasagot? Ayoko na si Patrick. Lagi na lang si Patrick. Ano na, class? Ako, nakalimutan nila. Ano? Sige, Julia Cruciel Avila. Bago to, bagong ano to, bagong member to ng ano. Sige, very good. Okay, so 'di ba ganon? Okay, so if water remains there during fixation, that is after fixation rather, we need to dehydrate the sample, right? So in order for us to dehydrate it, we can use increasing concentrations of alcohol. So routinely, we start at 70%. But for embryonic tissue, specifically if you're going to present something in a museum curation, you're going to start at 30%. So let's focus on what's going to be asked from us in the board to us by board examiners. Routine starts at 70 degrees Celsius, rising, okay, or increasing concentration. So ano na susunod? 80%, 90%, or 80%, 90%, 100. Ganon. Okay? So increasing siya, class. Now, what is the ratio? What is the important thing that you need to remember? The ratio of dehydrating agent and tissue. The ratio should be 10 is to 1. Okay? 10 is to 1 volume of tissue, a volume of dehydrating agent versus the tissue. Okay? So, with those things in mind, I want you guys to remember your most common dehydrating agents. Alcohols are the most common, specifically ethyl alcohol, and it's the best dehydrating agent. Methyl alcohol is also used, but with a little bit of a caveat. The caveat is that it is toxic, and most commonly it's employed in blood and tissue films. Okay, butyl is used for plants and nothing much else for us. But at the end, if you're using alcohol, 37 degrees usually hastens the dehydration process. Okay, clear? Now we go on to acetone, which is another what? Another universal solvent. Why? Because acetone can be used as what? Acetone can be used as a fixative, remember? Right? Di ba, class? You can use acetone as a fixative as well as a dehydrating agent, right? And it's usually utilized as an urgent biopsy dehydrating agent. Okay, we can also use diethylene dioxide, which is another universal solvent because it can dehydrate as well as it can be used as a dehydrating agent as well as a clearing agent, making it sure that we have what we can immediately impregnate the sample or um, penetrate the sample with paraffin. Okay, we can use cellusol, which is basically which is composed of ethylene glycol monoether, monoethyl ether, and phenol is usually used as a softener. I'm not going to talk about triethyl phosphate and tetrahydrofuran, mainly because there is a specific clearing discussion that will be again posted in your chat box later by my dear moderator, Moyo. Okay, but what I'm discussing is what you need to remember. Okay, so what do you need to remember? Alcohol, acetone, diethylene oxide, and what is the softener? What softener do we use? Phenol. Okay, why? Why do we need to use a softener, sir? I thought that was that we need to harden the sample. Well, there is a case where there are some cases that it becomes as hard as a rock, right? Tissues becomes as hard as a rock, and that poses a problem when you're sectioning a sample or trimming a sample. So in order, it has to be just right. It has that the hardness of a tissue just needs to be just right. It can't be too hard. It can't be too soft. Otherwise, you'll compromise what's going to be demonstrated by the stain. Okay, so we use phenol to soften over hardened tissues. Okay, because dehydration removes water, and when you remove water, there is a tendency that certain things become hard. Kaya nga, di ba nauso yung tumatanda ka na, nauubusan ka na ng tubig. Di ba? Yung tumatanda ka na. Kailangan mong uminom ng tubig. Ganun. Di ba? Anyways, let's move on to the next one, clearing. Clearing is basically removing the alcohol that we did with the previous method, with the previous process. That's basically its purpose. Okay, why do we need to remove the alcohol? Because alcohols are what? Alcohols are, or clearing agents are what? Mostly they are, I need to know, clinical chemistry, or sorry, organic chemistry, general chemistry. This is a general chemistry question. They are volatile. Okay? These reagents will react to subsequent tissue processes, right? It won't be, sometimes it won't be miscible with, sometimes it will be miscible, it won't be miscible with paraffin. Or in other times, the clearing aid, if you didn't clear a sample, when you subject it to a stain, it won't take up the stain because the the dehydrating agent or the fixative reacts with the stain or the paraffin. Okay, so we need to clear reagents as well. Now, clearing, let me read this one first. Clearing is removal of alcohol, also known as the alcoholization, and replaced with a substance that will dissolve in wax. Okay, we need something that is miscible with paraffin. Okay, it needs to mix with paraffin. All right. So it must be miscible with paraffin, and it has to be important. The most important thing about it is that it has to be transparent, transparent enough. Okay, transparent enough that it has a higher index of refraction or refraction index or the RI. Okay, what you need to remember in terms of clearing is that you want to make sure that you remove the alcohol as well as making sure that the sample is transparent. Okay? Hence the term clearing. Kaya nga clear. Kini-clear natin ang alcohol, kini-clear din natin ang sample. Okay? So it needs to be transparent as well. Otherwise, all you'll see is a black or a pink blob when you stain a sample that hasn't been cleared. Okay? Now, important things to take into consideration, the viscosity of the clearing agent as well as the temperature within which you subjected the sample in clearing. Okay, those are the things that you need to remember. Um, Clearing, removal of alcohol, need to make sure that it is transparent and therefore the clearing agent should have a high RI or refractive index. Viscosity and the temperature can affect the procedure. Okay. So, what do we usually use? We use xylene. Okay, xylene is the most common, most rapid. It turns milky though if the dehydration process is incomplete, if there's a lot of water in the sample. So you will come up. Why did I put this in the discussion? Because you will come into a case study where you will have to troubleshoot something. You're expected to. You'll be asked to troubleshoot something. Like for example. Uh, um, Laboratory technician saw, sorry, somebody texted me. Laboratory technician saw a milky clearing agent. Which of the following is the most likely cause? Or which of the following uh, which of the following steps have been affected by a milky silene tub or a silene bath, right? So you will be asked those questions in the board exam, and I'm not kidding. They they ask these questions. Okay, you can also use toluene as a substitute for xylene, although toluene is highly flammable, so there, so you should avoid that one. Benzene is an urgent, is fast, but unfortunately, what's the main reason why we don't use benzene? Organic chemistry question and safety question for those who are taking the ACP exams. What's the problem with benzene? Benzene rings cause what? They cause problems. They are carcinogenic, right? Okay, next. Chloroform is also indicated here. Is recommended for tough tissues like the skin or the calcified tissues, nervous tissues, lymph nodes, and embryos. The main problem with this one, health issue, is that it can affect the liver if there is prolonged inhalation. Cedar wood oil can be used, but the problem is that the problem with that one is that it's hard to buy cedar wood oil because they have to harvest it and purify it. Okay, so this one is expensive. That's why not many hospitals use cedar wood oil. Um, Main problem with the main advantage of this one is that it's natural and it's less toxic than the other ones that we've discussed. Aniline oil is usually the one that you get from vanilla. Okay, vanilla extract. Um, and that's basically it for clearing. Now we're going to move on with impregnation and embedding. So what the problem with most students is that they forget what's the difference between impregnation and embedding. Okay, so impregnation is basically you're inserting something into those little holes that you've made when you're fixing a sample, and you've dehydrated it already. You've already cleared it. Now, the next thing that you need to do, thank you, Jericho, and thank you, Raphael. Pasagot ang mga ating... I forgot to mention one of my house rules pala, class, no? Nakalimutan ko. If you're going to answer a question, di ba nga, Renmar? Sabi ko, if you're going to answer a question, you unmute yourself and raise your hand, di ba? Or you raise your hand and then unmute yourself, di ba? Pag nagtanong ako. So, Raphael and Jericho, next time, ha, if you're going to answer, we have to raise our hand and then unmute ourselves. Okay? Okay, okay. Tandaan nyo, binabantayan ni Sir Marco yan, yung sumasagot kasi baka malay nyo, nag-note siya na magbibigay ng plus. Okay? Nagbigay ba siya ng plus sa inyo dati, Renmar? Doon sa mga sumali sa debate, yung mga activities ko? Oh, yun ba yung dahilan kung ba't ka pumasa sa paligid, Renmar? Baka mamaya, nag-rely ka lang doon. Ah, okay. Okay, 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 okay. Ikaw, Mel. Mel, ha? Marami ka ding nakuhang plus last time. Kayong dalawa ni Dexter. Baka yun lang yung reason kung bakit ka pumasa, ha? Nakakaloka. O, kita nyo, kung sumasagot kayo dito, may mga students tayo na tumataas ang grade at nakakapasa, di ba? Di ba, class? So, dapat sumasagot tayo, class, ha? Okay? Okay. Di ba, ako ba ang pinaka-generous ninyong seminar lecturer? Hindi pa ako nakapagbigay ng pera kay Dexter. Ako pinaka-generous. Ano namin nagre-react, oh, di ba? Paulit-ulit lang kayo ng apat, leche kayo. Charing lang. Charing lang. Let's move on na class. Okay, so most students have a problem with differentiating between impregnation and embedding. So impregnation, what you want to do is you want to remove the clearing agent. Okay? So you replace the medium, you soak it in a hot bath of paraffin. And by that methodology, the clearing agent will mix with the. That's the reason why you also need the miscible clearing agent. A clearing agent that is miscible with paraffin because of this because of this. Okay, so the section or the tissue that you're impregnating gets becomes free of the clearing agent because of the impregnation bath or the infiltration bath. Okay, so paraffin itself is soaking it in melted paraffin is a process within itself, and its purpose in terms of impregnation is to remove the clearing agent and replace it with a medium that you can use for cutting the specimen. Embedding is also known as casting or blocking. Why? Because you are what? You are soaking a sample that has been impregnated and placing it precisely in a mold that can be allowed to solidify and then cut. So, what's the difference, sir? Irregular ang shape pag impregnation, paglabas sa ano, kasi nasa loob pa siya ng tissue cassette. Okay? Pag mag-embed ka na, di ba, ilalagay mo na siya doon sa tissue block mo, sa mga holders mo. Di ba? Yun lang yung pinagkaiba niya. Pero may purpose silang dalawa class ha. Itong embedding, kaya ang term niya is embedding, to um, it's to precisely align it in the position that the pathologist placed it in. Hindi yung basta tayo kukuha, ay, appendix, ay, ganyan ko lang yan dyan. Eh, gusto makita ng, mostly ang gusto ng mga makita ng mga pathologist is yung lumen ng appendix. Ang pinakita mo yung balat sa labas lang, ay yung ano, yung outer layer lang ng ano, ng intestine ang nakita ng ano, ng pathologist. 'Di ba? So that's why it's important that medtechs themselves are taught gross sectioning, a gross analysis. Bakit? Kasi doon nila malalaman, ay, inilagay ni Dr. Canlas na sa harap yung lumen. Dapat pagka in-embed ko siya, nasa harap pa rin yung lumen. Okay? Ay, yung tumor, itatalikod ko para hindi makita yung tumor, para walang cancer. Ganon. Diba? Hindi pwedeng ganon, ha, class? Wag ganon. Baka mamaya nyo na itago ninyo yung ano. Kaya important ang differentiation between impregnation and embedding. Hindi tayo basta-basta naglalagay lang ng sample sa tissue block or sa blocking station ng hindi ino-orient doon sa precise orders sa precise location or position ng pathologist. Okay? Okay. So baka tanungin kayo about that. Now, what do we need to remember about paraffin wax? Paraffin wax is the simplest, the most common, and the best embedding medium. Its melting point is at around 5 to 58 degrees Celsius at 24 degrees centigrade, or 5 to 54 degrees Celsius, 50 to 50, sorry, nalutang ako, 54 to 58 degrees Celsius at room temperature, okay? 20 to 94 degrees Celsius. At lower temperatures or colder temperatures, its melting point is lower as well, okay? Manual processing, you need to have at least 5 changes of wax within 15 minutes, okay? Okay? 5, sorry. Something moved. May mumu ata dito sa bago kong bahay. So if it's manual processing, it's 4 changes of wax with a 15-minute interval to remove the clearing agent. Okay. If it's automatic, it just requires 2 to 3 changes of wax. You decrease the processing time because of the constant agitation. Usually, this is with an Auto-Technicon. Okay, so the Auto-Technicon has a swirler at the bottom, like those little magnetic tablets that spin around, that mix the sample. We could also use vacuum embedding, negative atmospheric pressure inside an embedding oven. So you could use that one as well. So what's the main purpose of vacuum embedding? What's the setup inside a vacuum embedding chamber? So what happens is that you introduce a sample into a zero atmospheric pressure, okay, or negative atmospheric pressure. So you remove that one. Obviously, something penetrates faster, right? Because your everything, all the air was sucked out. Okay. Um, the embedding oven is hot also itself. It's around 50 to 54 degrees Celsius. So that way you get hot wax as well as a sample that is readily impregnable with a with this particular setup. Okay, so that's the only difference between vacuum embedding, is that you remove all the air inside the particular chamber. And again, the problem with vacuum embedding, guys, is that it's only used for it can only be used for one sample at a time. Okay, much like decalcification via electrophoresis. Okay, next, factors affecting paraffin wax impregnation: the nature and the size of the tissue, of course. Okay, um, the type of clearing agent used. If it's xylene or benzene, it can easily be removed. Chloroform and cedarwood oil, on the other hand, is difficult to remove. Okay, it takes a longer time. Substitutes for paraffin wax, you could use paraplast, which is basically plastic. What's important about this one is that it has a higher melting point, and it is more elastic and more resilient. The reason why not a lot of hospitals use paraplast is because it's expensive. Embedol is also the same thing. It has a higher melting point. Okay. Bioloid is something that we use for eye samples, particularly for histology sections of eyes, and then tissue mats that contain rubber. So the only thing that you need to remember here is the substitute, paraplast and bioloid. I would like you guys to underline paraplast and bioloid when you're discussing this, when you are discussing this, okay, or when you're studying this. Next one, we can also use celloidine. Okay, celloidine impregnation is different. Um, uh, by means that it can be suitable for tissue sections that have larger hollows. Yung mas mga malalaki yung butas. Okay? Like what? Like what, sir? Like bone samples, 'di ba? Kasi nga madaming ano 'yun, madami. I-decalcify mo 'yon tapos tatanggalin tapos may magiging fragile siya, 'di ba? What else? At saka marami din yung butas na malalaki. What else? I suppose brain tissue. No, not brain tissue. Brain tissue is usually frozen sections. Mm, there we have a separate discussion on this one. You'll see more. Um, Again, they don't usually ask what type of organs, but more so why is it important? Okay, so larger hollow cavities, celloidine. So there's two methodologies in which we could use celloidine. Um, wet celloidine method. We could use it in both teeth, bones, and brain sections or whole organs, while dry celloidine is for whole eyes. Okay, the whole eye can be can be impregnated with dry celloidine. Okay, we can also use gelatin, but the main problem with that one is that you basically want to do histochemistry and enzyme studies on this one. That's why you don't want to damage the specimen's chemical integrity. And paraffin, and if you're doing rarely use except when dehydration is to be avoided. So see, why dehydration is to be avoided is because you want to see how the cells react at certain chemical tests or histochemistry or enzyme studies. Okay, so if you want to see the biochemical integrity of the biochemical structures or any biochemical abnormality in a tissue sample, you subject it with histochemistry and enzyme studies. And gelatin is used if you want to omit dehydration in the whole process. So magiging F-sit lang siya pag gelatin ang ginamit mo. Okay? So embedding medium used for delicate specimen and frozen sections. Okay? Gelatin. Next, we have blocking molds. So we're talking about embedding now. So the Leucart Embedding mold is the L-shaped strips and a heavy metal brass. Very traditional. It basically forms an L on each side, two L-shaped strips that can form like a rectangle. Okay, and then you place the tissue in the middle of that one, and then let the paraffin flow or the embedding media flow. You could use an embedding mold, which is the interlocking plates that will form a grid. Okay, I think most of the hospitals in the Philippines use this one because it's cheaper. Plastic embedding rings, very bougie. Rarely, I've not seen it in the hospitals I visited in the Philippines. Probably in the larger hospitals like Philippine Heart Center. I'm not sure, but this one I've only seen this in not in Saudi Arabia when I worked in Saudi Arabia. One hospital that I worked in. Disposable embedding molds, yung pinakamaarte sa lahat. Now, what do we need to remember when it comes to embedding? The orientation. I can't emphasize this enough. The orientation of the specimen is the most important thing that you need to remember when when we're talking about embedding. Okay? So the tissue is arranged in a precise position in the mold during the embedding process, on the microtome before cutting, and the slide before staining. So see, this one can cause an analytical error mainly because what? Mainly because the tissue was arranged in an improper manner. Yun nga yung sinasabi ko kanina. Yung baka naitago, okay? So baka naitago yung tumor, tas syempre false positive. Okay? Next, let's talk about microtomy. So, microtomy is a separate discussion itself. In itself, it is it's part of FD seat. So, trimming is the first thing that should come into mind when you're discussing microtomy. But there are three essential parts of a microtome. Okay, you have a block holder, you have a knife carrier and the knife, as well as the pawl and the ratchet feed wheel, and adjustment knobs. Okay, there's also an adjustment knob here, sir. Yes. Okay, ano yung pawl, sir, tsaka yung ratchet feed wheel? Ano yan? Ratchet. Ano yan? Yan ba yung mga babae na palainom? Tapos nangaaway? Yan ba yung mga ratchet na yun? Ganun ba yung ibig mong sabihin, sir? Hindi. Yung ratchet feed wheel, siya yung nagpapalapit sa ano? Nagpapalapit. Yun yung wheel na iniikot mo para lumapit sa blade yung section. Okay? Pag tinitrim natin. Yung Paul naman, sir, ano yung Paul? Ano yun? Kaklasiko ba yun na si Paul? Meron ba kayong kaklasing Paul dyan? Okay, so ano naman yung Paul? Yun yung malaking wheel na ginaganon natin para akyat baba yung tissue section. Okay? So clear tayo doon, class, ha? And I don't have the reason why I added this is because maybe they'll ask it on the board exam, but again, historically, I've not heard anybody say anything about the parts of the microtome. Okay? What I did get is the types of the microtome. Okay? So I did get that historically from previous board examinations. They'll ask you questions about which of the following is the most dangerous type of um, the most dangerous type of microtome. So rocking microtome, basically what happens is that there is just a blade that goes whoop, down, up, down, up, down. Okay? Up, down, up, down. Okay? Nothing special about that. That's the most traditional. And there's one type that they use. It's the Cambridge type which was invented by Padwell Trafal, and it's the simplest one of all. Okay, rotary microtome was we have a patent name made by Minot for paraffin embedded tissues. Sliding microtome, that's the one made by Adams. It's usually used from embedded tissue. It's like a sledge type. What happens to it is that you basically when you rotate it, the knife goes sideways. Okay, it goes sideways and it cuts the section sideways. That's why it's dangerous. It's like a sword cutting through you. So, for example, somebody there may madaldal, chika ng chika, gumanon, hindi pinansin na nagka-cut ka pala ng section. Hi, Patrick! Ganon, nag-hi kay Patrick. Kaya ba, ano pa, nagpapakit pa kay Patrick, ginaganyan pa yung hair, ganon. Hi, Patrick! Eh, ginanon ni Patrick yung ano, yung sledge mic, yung Adam's microphone. Oh, sugat si ate, ganon. Okay? So, yon. Okay, and then the freezing microtome, usually you get like a quicket, the quicket type. The quicket type is what the only difference is, like it's like a rotary microtome, but it's inside a freezer. That's basically it. Okay, it's inside a freezer. That there's nothing special about it. You still use the same blade, you still use the same thing, but what's different is that it's inside a freezer. Okay. Ultrathin microtome is something that you need to remember also. For ultrathin microtome, the the size of the strips of the ribbon that comes out is at zero point 0.5 zero point 0.5 micra. Okay, why is zero point 0.5 micra important? It's because you use it for electron microscopy. And what I've mentioned, have I mentioned before? For electron microscopy, we use osmium tetroxide, right? And usually these are embedded in plastic. Okay? Hindi yung kaibigan mong plastic na sinisiraan ka kapag ka ano, hindi 'yon. Okay? Kailangan yung plastic na didikit sa iyo, okay? Yung tataas, gaganda ang buhay mo, tapos nakakaba-backstabin. Ganon. Charit. Charit lang, charit, charit lang. Ultra thin microtome yung ginagamitan ng plastic embedding medium class, ha? Okay? Okay? Hindi yung friend natin na plastic. Now, there are types of microtome knives also. You have the plain concave. I'll skip this one because most of the time, they use biconcave knives. Okay, there's a concavity on both sides. Not sure if you've seen it, guys. If you've done your experiments in histopathology, but these type of the concave knives come in a box that you just go and shoot out. That you just click and then you get a knife. And that's the one that you place in the microtome. I'm not sure if you guys seen that, but if we have some time later, I'll show you guys because I have some here in my box of goodies when I moved from my new apartment. Okay? Grabe naman to sir, nagtatago, nag-hoard ng mga ano, hindi, for teaching purposes yan. Kasi na-hire ako ni Sir Marco magturo, di ba? May mga ano pa nga ako dito, may mga plates pa nga ako ng mga types ng inoculating needle, may inoculating loops dito eh. At saka pag nagturo ako ng phlebotomy, yung types na, yung mga gauges ng needle, siyempre, di ba? Gusto ko talaga worth it yung tuition ninyo para nakakakita naman kayo na ano. Hindi yung puro Twitter lang kayo ha. Or X na pala ngayon, no? Hindi na pala Twitter. Okay, so bevel tayo ngayon. So, important din na maalala natin yung bevel. Okay? So, pagkakita nyo dyan, capital letters, obviously, tatanong yan. Pag sinabing bevel, the angle is formed between the cutting edge, which is normally 27 degrees to 30 degrees. Hindi yan temperature class. Yung angle mismo, okay? Yung angle siya. Wide angle, sorry. Sabi wedge angle, sorry. Wedge angle is formed from both sides of the wedge of the knife. So 14 degrees to 15 degrees yung taas, yung ano niya, yung angles niya. Okay? Next. Next, I want you guys to remember what is honing and stroping also. Honing is the removal of gross nicks in the knife. This is usually done in the olden days. Um, what's the main thing that you need to remember? Heel to toe, the edge first. Heel to toe, heel to toe. Okay? This is when you are trying to sharpen a knife. But there's two types of sharpening a knife. You are either honing or stroping. If it's honing, you use heel to toe, edge first. Right? Hindi yung para kang nag-aano, hindi yung parang gaganyan ka lang si Derek Ramsey tuloy. Sino yun? Gordon Ramsay. Derek Ramsey, alam talaga yung pumapasok sa utak ko, puro mga kaanuhan, kalokohan. Ayun, tumatawa ka na naman, Renmar, puro kakalokohan, ha? Hindi Derek Ramsey, si Gordon Ramsay. Hindi yung ganun na parang si Gordon Ramsay pag magluluto, ha? Okay? Okay? Ganun siya dapat. Mabilis pati yan. Tsaka hindi yan ginagawa ng mga ano ng mga ng mga medtech dito sa US. Usually sila ang manggagawa niyan yung mga ano, yung mga uh, ano tawag doon? Parang yung, I don't know, blacksmiths. super, super luma. Super luma na kasi siya na method. It's like you're making a samurai sword. I'll forward a video of how a samurai sword is sharpened, and you'll hear the words honing and stroping a lot also. Okay, so basically you have three types of homes. Ano yung homes? Yan yung hasaan. Okay? Yun yung hasaan class. So Belgium yellow it gives best results. Basically a type of stone that's yellow. Okay, we have Arkansas, the fine carborundum, and the plate glass hone and the machine hone. Plate glass hone is used not only for microtome knives but also for swords. Okay, just for your information, I saw that in the Discovery Channel once when they were trying to when they were trying to sharpen a old katana. Okay, next, stroping is removing of burrs. Ano naman yung mga burr during honing? During honing is removed and the cutting edge of the knife is polished. So this one is toe to heel. Okay, so toe to heel, yung pag ganun siya. Okay, toe to heel, edge last. Okay, so toe to heel, pag ganun pala siya. Parang binabayo mo paalis, paatras. Okay? Hindi yung bayo nakabastos. Kayo talaga, puro kayo kalokohan. Ngumingisi ka na naman, Renmar. Tama ba yan? Puro kakalokohan, Renmar. Hindi yung ano. Kayo talaga. Yung binabayo siya palabas. Okay? Ginaganon. Puro kakalokohan, Renmar. Nagtuturo ako dito. Seryoso ako dito, Renmar. Tawa ka ng taong, bungiskis ka ng bungiskis dyan. Tama ba yan? Anong klase yan na estudyante? Okay? So, toe to heel naman siya. So, tatandaan nyo lang, class. Heel to toe, okay, honing. Huwag niyo kakalimutan, ito bigyan ko kayo ng technique. Pag honing, kasi tinanong yan talaga sa board exam class, kaya nakaano. My professor attests to it. I don't know because I wasn't asked this question when I was in my board exam, but because you haven't taken your board exams yet, we want to give you as many possible questions as possible before you sit your exams. So, what one technique that I always tell my students is when you start with honing, H, o heel, H, para hindi ka na malito. Huwag mo nang tandaan yung sa kabila. Kasi lalo ka malilito no pag tinandaan mo both. Daig ng wais ang matalino. Okay? Daig ng wais ang matalino. Ayoko mag-isip, sir. Okay? Ayoko mag-isip. I don't want to think about this because this is too much. I have to remember microorganisms as well as the chemicals you've just told me earlier. Diba? Ganon. So I'm just going to remember honing is H. H stands for heel also. Heel to toe. That's the process. So heel to toe. So tsk, 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 diba? Ganon. Diba? Diba? Binabayo pa loob. Puro kakalokohan talaga rin. Mangisi ka ng ngisi, nakakaloka ka. Okay? Pero in fairness, pumasa ka naman. Kaya ano, baka siguro kailangan mo ng konting kabastusan sa utak. Okay? So stroping, wag na nating tandaan yung process kasi alam na natin HH, heel to toe. So obviously, ito yung opposite. Okay? What you need to remember is the two. Okay? Honing and stroping. Huwag niyo kakalimutan. Baka, ala sir, nakalimutan ko yung isa. Ay, abot sa iyo. Hindi ko na. Bahala ka dyan. Okay, so we also use lubricants. Kita nyo, ayan na naman tayo. Nag-easy na naman yung mga ano. Ay nako. Ay nako, Patrick. Yung mata mo lang ang nakikita ko, pero yung mata mo nakangisi. Nakakaloka ka, ha? Nakakaloka ka. Buti pa si Moyo, yung kilay lang yung umingisi. Yung kilay lang yung umingisi. The rest of the face, poker face. Ganyan ba talaga si Moyo sa personal? Ito lang yung may expression, itong sites lang na to may ano. Kasi nakita ko kayo parang Patrick, nag-post ka ng story mo, nakita ko yung si Moyo, kung ano yung itsura niya dito, ganun din yung itsura niya doon sa ano. Ganun lang talaga siya pa. Ganun lang talaga siya, class. Okay. Anyways, let's continue. So when you're doing stroping, you have to use lubricants also. This is so that the burrs can easily slide out. Okay? So hindi yan puro kalokohan. Mineral oil lang ginagamit natin, clove or sometimes xylene natin or liquid paraffin or soapy water. Okay? Soapy water, sir. Ay, nako. Kung ano-ano na namang iniisip ni Renmar. Kalokohan ka talaga, Renmar. Okay, so because we've reached that part of our lecture where I've discussed it within 2 hours, the whole two things, I know it's going to be a longer discussion. That's why I have prepared an in-depth I've prepared lectures of these in-depth lectures or in-depth topics one by one, and I've asked Moyo to copy and paste it. Thank you for that one, Moyo. Okay, so what we're going to focus on is this one. Dito ako medyo magtatagal ng konti. Okay, because this was something that I didn't discuss last time, but I asked a lot of questions, right? 'Di ba, 'di ba, 'di ba? And of course, siguro hindi na ako dito kukuha ng questions sa gagawin kong exam. Siyempre, akala nyo, anong akala nyo makakapasa kayo sa akin? 'Di ba? Ang goal ko is bumagsak kayo, 'di ba? Yun yung goal ko, 'di ba? Nagtuturo ako para bumagsak kayo. Charing lang, binibigyan ko nga kayo ng techniques para pumasa. Nakakaloka kayo. Kayo lang naman ang hindi gumagamit. Okay. All right. So staining is the first thing. Is the stains are of course the first thing that comes to your mind when you talk about histology, right? Why? Because the first thing that you looked at in the microscope is a stain slide, 'di ba? Yun yung unang-una ninyo, ay shit, magdo-drawing kami sa histology, yun lang yun. Actually, yun din yung ano ko. Yun din yung impression ko dati nung pumasok ako ng first histology class ko. Kasi dati, ang gagawin lang naman natin sa histology class natin, identify the cell, right? Identify what types of epithelial cells do you see in your cheek swab? Diba? Ganun lang yung tinatanong sa atin. Kasi the first thing that we did was stain it. Okay? And it has left an impression on all of us. But because our topic is histotechnics, we want to know what is going on with this particular process. Okay, with this particular process. So we have three types of stains, of course: histological stains, histochemical stains, and immunohistochemical stains. So what's the difference between the three? Okay, histological stains are also known as your microanatomical stains, and they are used to demonstrate section, to demonstrate the interaction of tissue constituents with the dye. Okay, interaction, whether it will intake the stain or they impart the stain. There's also terminologies like eosinophilic or basophilic, right? Usually, which is eosinophilic, the nucleus or the cytoplasm. If you remember your hematology, which one takes up eosin better in a neutrophil? Is it the nucleus or the cytoplasm? Ooh, those are the things that will come out in the board exam class. Not only here in histopathology, but it will also appear in hematology. So class, you have to remember those things. Okay, please write it now. I need to know because we have a time crunch too. I have a time crunch and I need to deliver, of course, yung pinramis ko kay Sir Marco. Okay? So I'll leave that bit of information to you guys, okay? Which one takes up in H&E staining, I'm talking about H&E staining because that's what you do in hematology. Okay? Which one is basophilic and which one is eosinophilic, okay? So it's also known as a microanatomical stain. Now let's move on to histochemical stain. Histochemical staining is you're studying the various constituents of the tissues through chemical reactions. Okay, it's not the direct interaction with the dye, but rather how much changes in the dye. What the changes in the chemical composition will happen once the dye is added to the recipe. So it's like this. Immunohistochemical stain, tinapunan ko ng pintura si Mel. Okay? Ganon. Ganon yung nangyari. Histological staining or microanatomical stain. Tinapunan ko ng pintura si Mel kung ano yung nakita nating stain, yun na yun. Okay? Immunohistochemical stain, binuhusan ko ng clear na likido si Mel, biglang nag-color blue. Gets? Bakit? Yung pawis kasi ni Mel nag-react doon sa clear na likido na nilagay ko, di ba? So sir, is it true na all immunohistochemical stains are clear colored? Well, not really, not all, okay? Not all of them. Sometimes they could be different colors that changes color once a particular type of cancer is detected, mga ganon, okay? Now, next naman natin is the immunohistochemical stain. Immunohistochemical stain combines the principles of both immunology, and histochemistry. Ano yun, sir? Merong antibody-antigen reaction class. Okay? So what you are using here is not really a stain, but more so an antibody carrier carrying a dye. Okay? So if the antibody, say for example, you're detecting HER2 cells on a breast tissue, okay? You detect, you know that the sample, you want to know if the sample has HER2 cells. What's HER2 cells? HER2 is a marker. HER2 is a marker for breast cancers. Okay, so there's two types. I don't want to go deep into that one because that is histopathology. That is one for that's for more on the pathology residency exams. Okay, that's not the type of exam that you're going to take. What you guys are going to take is the principles of those staining what's happening in the staining, not the interpretation of the results, but more so on how this result came into being. Okay, so what's going to happen is that you have a, I don't know, a monoclonal antibody directed against H or HER2 cells, and that monoclonal antibody has an attachment at the very top of its of the variable region. Okay, and that one will react to it. It's like in situ hybridization assay. Okay, it's like an in situ, it's an on-site or in body type of this in body type of reaction. You add the dye or you add the chemical that has antibodies, and if it has HER2 cells in it, it will bind the antibody. Now, what's different in histochemistry is that immunohistochemistry is that it not only relies on bright field microscopy or light microscopy, but you can also use fluorescence antibody, fluorescence antibody microscopy. What's that, sir? When you flash in an excitation lamp in your tissue, a certain if for example an antibody reacted to the cell in question or to the tissue in question, it will fluoresce and create a type of pattern or a staining pattern or a fluorescence pattern. So yun yung pinagkaiba nila. So, sir, paano ko meron kasing question na lumabas sa isang board exam. Around, I think it was 2015, and a student of mine came up to me and said, on a Facebook message, she asked me, "Sir, how would I answer this question? Which of the following staining types is the most specific?" Oh, di ba? Which of the following testing types is the most specific? Since sa tingin nyo, and then it gave three types of tests. It gave three types of dyes. Pearls Prussian blue. What else? Periodic acid Schiff. What else? Congo red. And then the last one that was present that she sent in was monoclonal antibodies with luciferin dyes. Sino sa tingin niyo yung pinaka-specific? Letter D, di ba? Kasi alam niyo na ginagamit yon for immunohistochemistry. Di ba? Kasi antibody yung ginamit na dye. Di ba? Gets? Bakit sa tingin niyo mas specific pa si periodic acid shift? Eh paano kung nagkamali ng processing yung staff? 'Di ba? So hindi siya magiging specific. So gets nyo, class? Clear? Clear? All right. So alam na natin kung paano sumagot ng which of the following is the most specific. Okay? So alam na natin kung paano sasagutin ha. Okay, binigyan ko na kayo ng idea. Baka mamaya may magkamali pa rin ha. Pinakita sa akin ni Sir Marco yung mga exam ninyo, kala ninyo. Renmar ha, nakita ko yung isa sa mga exam mo. Sabi ko, kunin mo yung exam ni ipakita mo sa akin yung exam ng anak ko. Nung dalawa kong anak, I was extremely disappointed with this when there were basic questions that were answered wrong. Ilang beses kong inuulit sa discussion, Renmar, kung tatandaan ko yon. Blood bank yon. Ayoko kasi baka mapahiya yung anak ko. That's my form of tough love lang. Yung kino-call out lang kita sa kalokohan mo, Renmar. Okay? All right, next. Now we have types of staining methods naman. We have direct staining, we have indirect staining, and we have progressive staining. An additional information is that we call we also have another we also have other types of staining: regressive, metachromatic, counter staining, vital staining, and we'll discuss them one by one. Okay? So direct staining, you add the color, you add the color. It's usually an aqueous or an alcoholic dye, and then that's it. You see the cellular pattern. You see the nucleus and the cytoplasm outlined there. You have an indirect stain, within which you're using an action. The dye is intensified by adding an agent. There are two things that you need to remember when you're adding another agent in indirect staining. There is a mordant and there is an accentuator. A mordant forms a bridge that links tissue and dye. I'll give you an example. What is the mordant used in gram stain? Anybody? Raise your hands if you know. I'll call you if you don't. I'll call your name. What's the mordant used in gram staining? Ayoko si Moyo. Madami ka ng trabaho, Moyo. Huwag ka na ayoko na si Patrick. Paulit-ulit na yan si Patrick. Baka sabihin may favoritism ako. Iba naman. Yung mga ano. Ayoko na din si Amanda. Nakikita ko na din yan dati si Amanda eh. Yung iba nating students, nasaan na ba yung iba nating students? 92 kayo, 95 kayo dito, class, oh. Ay, 94 kayo dito, oh. Nasaan na yung iba? Anong ginagawa ng iba nating mga students? By the way, meron kaming findings si Sir Marco where we're doing an official research study. The more you interact in this particular type of discussion, the more likely you pass the exams. Um, not gonna say names, but majority of the time, yung mga nakikita ko na nagre-respond dito sa mga questions ko dito, sila yung pumapasa. Not because they're getting plus scores, but because they are actually engaging in the discussion. So I encourage you guys to, when I ask a question, do you remember this? Let's try your best to answer. I don't really care if you made the wrong answer. The reason why I want you guys to answer is because if you're wrong, you know what made you wrong, right? So who knows the mordant used in gram stain? It's the most basic in microbiology. Mordant. Mordant used in ayan, Maria Therese. Naging student ko na ba dati to si Maria Therese? Ay, hindi pa. Okay. Maria Therese. What's the mordant? Unmute yourself in gram stains. Sorry, I can't hear you. Okay. Thank you. Grams, iodine. Tama ba ang pagkakarinig ko? Sorry.
Yes po.
Ayan. Alright. Nawalan pala ng battery yung ano ko. Tama ba yun? Nawalan ng battery. Kaya pala hindi ko na naririnig yung mga nagtataas ng kamay. Okay, so an accentuator is different. An accentuator basically hastens the speed of the staining reaction. It has nothing to do with the reaction as um, as a whole. It doesn't form a bridge. It doesn't connect the tissue to the dye, but more so on increasing the rate of reaction. Okay, those are the things that you need to remember. Progressive staining. Progressive staining and regressive staining, these two things are interchangeable, aren't interchangeable, but they're quite the opposite of one another. So let's go with regressive staining. The tissue is first overstained and decolorized until the desired intensity of color is obtained. So what happens here is a great example of a regressive stain is the use of carbofuscin. Okay, the use of carbofusion in AFB staining. Why? You flood the sample. It's even written in the directions to flood the sample with carbofusion, right? Then you heat it up and then you wash off the rest. Then you add the counter stain. That is an example of regressive staining. You over decolorize a sample. Okay, so the opposite of progressive staining is that you add small amounts of the sample or of the primary stain, wash it off, add another one, wash it off, look at it into the microscope. That's progressive staining, and that's not really used here in histopathology. That's why I didn't discuss it that much. Okay. We have also metachromatic staining, which basically means from the name itself, meta, which means different colors. Okay, it entails the use of dyes which differentiate particular substances in staining that with color that is different from that of the stain itself. So, for example, um, we have trichrome stains. Okay, so trichrome stains is mainly used for parasitology studies, right? Like trichrome stains usually are colored blue. Okay, just blue or green. Sorry, because it has malachite green in it. So when you add it in it's just one dye, and then it has three different colors. If it's the nucleus, it's blue. If it's the cytoplasm, it's it's light green, and then the rest of it, it's just pink. So trichrome staining itself. So that's a metachromatic stain. The stain itself is different, but the reaction to the dye by a particular cellular structure produces different reactions. Okay, we have counter staining also, which is a type of indirect staining procedure, right? Gram stain can be used as count. What is counter staining? What is a great example of counter staining? Gram stain. What's the counter stain that we use there? Safranin, right? So again, some of these terms can be interchangeable, but I want you guys to know is the definition, application of a different color or stain to provide a contrast to a background. Okay, so what's the background? Ay, thank you. Ayan. Huwag mag-alala, yung voice ko naman yung makikita. Tsaka may provided naman na ano, na lecture dyan sa kanila. Gusto ko lang masasabayan nila yung ano. Chill ka lang dyan mo yun. Okay? All right. So counter staining. The stain provides a background. What's another example of counter staining? Nigrosin dye, right? So what does nigrosin do? Or India ink preparation? You stain the background, right? Yeast cells, if they are present, won't be stained. But because you did stain them, and they're the only one that the yeast cells are the only ones that weren't stained, they come up prominently in a black background, right? So that's counter staining. Okay? So clear? Clear pa rin, nakakahabol pa rin tayo? Huh? Next, vital staining is another example. So vital staining is a selective stain for living cell constituents. Okay, so there's two types, intravital and supravital. So if it's an intravital stain, you're going to expect it to be injected on a living person. That's what you usually do in radiologic studies. So sino na ba dito ang nagpa-MRI or nagpa-CT scan with contrast? Yan yung ginagawa doon sa intravital. Pag sinabing supravital, kinuha ang sample sa katawan mo and habang buhay pa yung sample na yon, in-stain siya. What's an example of a supravital stain? Reticulocyte techniques, right? Because we want to stain the reticulocytes. Using what? Yung methylene blue, di ba? Okay? Now, in histopathology, you'll hear Janus green and neutral red. It's the best vital dye. And Janus green is used usually for mitochondrial stains. Okay? Now, let's talk about H&E, which is the most common used technique for examination of tissue cells. You'll need to have a fixative that's not osmic acid as it inhibits hematoxylin. Okay? Hematoxylin is hematoxylin consists rather of four components. It's or the technique consists of four components: Harris hematoxylin, which is the primary dye; acid alcohol, which is the differentiator; ammonia, which is the bluing agent; and eosin, which is the counter stain. Okay, clear? Now, stains and their staining solutions. So we have natural dyes. Hematoxylin is derived from the Mexican tree Hematoxylin campechianum. Hematine is the active coloring agent formed by the oxidation of hematoxylin in the process called as ripening. So there's several types of ripening processes. The natural ripening process is exposing the the tree or branches of the tree or sorry, the bark of the tree rather, to direct sunlight and then purifying what's left of the bark. Okay, we also have artificial ripening where we use hydrogen peroxide, mercuric oxide, potassium permanganate, and sodium perborate and sodium iodate. Okay, now, once you have a ripened hematoxylin, if whether it's undergone natural or artificial ripening, you need to add alum and iron, chromium and copper to produce the hematoxylin stain or Harris hematoxylin. That's the process of making the hematoxylin. Okay, they say it's natural, but you still need to add heavy metals. Okay, so it's very it's very confusing to me when I read the literature, but that's how you produce it. Okay, now, we have also the cochineal dye, which comes from a bug, Coccus cati, which is a cochineal bug which comes from a female cochineal bug, and it's treated with alum to produce the carmine dye. Now, carmine is carmine can be reacted with picric acid to form picrocarmine, which is used for neuropathological studies. Like those things that you see in your books that said this was stained with musicarmine or um, picrocarmine. So musicarmine basically is for mucoid samples. Okay, and and there's another type of carmine which is known as best carmine. I don't know why they call it best carmine. I tried researching on it. I thought it was the name of the maker, like Renmar Best. I thought that was his last name. That was the person's last name, but apparently it's just best carmine. It's just named as best carmine. I don't know if it was a patent, but what it does, it's used for glycogen demonstration. Another name for that one is mucicarmine, by the way. Okay. We also have vegetable dyes that's also known as orcine. Orcine is a vegetable dye that is extracted from lichens, which are normally colorless and treated with ammonia and exposed to air to produce a blue color or violet color. What are lichens, class? These are the things that grow on trees. Pag nagpunta kayo sa Baguio, nakikita niyo yung parang mga puti na patches dun sa tree. Kinukudkod yun, class. Tapos, nilulublob yun sa ammonia. Yung powder na galing dun. Nilulublob sa ammonia. And then, pinapahanginan yun after several days. Tapos, ano yun? Orsin ang tawag dun sa ganun. Okay, lichens. Hindi yun yung Bacillus licheniformis, class. Okay, next. Next are synthetic dyes. So these are known as coal tar dyes. You can call them as chromophores or chromogen plus an oxochrome. You get a dye. Okay. So not I don't like to focus much on how to produce the dyes because that's more on manufacturer side. But just for your information and just to make the discussion a little bit interesting. Okay, so acid dyes, there's several types of acid synthetic dyes, by the way. There's acid dyes, basic dyes, and I think those are the two. Okay, so acid dyes are coloring substances that are found in the acid component of an inactive base. An example of this one is picric acid. Nakikita nyo yung trend, parang lagi picricarmine, mga ganon-ganon. Okay? Basic dyes naman, they are active coloring substances that are found in the basic component. An example of that one is methylene blue. 'Di ba? Naalala nyo kapag nag-stain tayo ng cells natin sa sa supravital staining. It's new methylene blue, right? It's a basic dye with several concentration differences. That's why it's called new methylene blue. Okay, so staining solutions, we've discussed this already. We have alum hematoxylin or aluminum hematoxylin. Okay, most common and used in in routine hematology, histology. Mordant is usually is a metal, alum or iron, and you'll have um, you'll have one which is aluminum hematoxylins, which are recommended for progressive stains. Uh, there are several types of them. I don't want you guys to focus on them, but just for your information, the most commonly used in the laboratory or histology laboratory is Harris hematoxylin. Ehrlich hematoxylin is a has a uses the is formed by sodium iodide as a ripening agent, and then you stabilize it with glycerin. There's also Coles and Mayers. I don't want you guys to focus on this one because this one is not going to be asked. But for purpose of the for purpose of helping you guys out, we still use iodine as a ripening agent. Okay? So nakita nyo ripening agent lang yung difference nilang lahat to. Sodium iodide, um, alcoholic iodine for Coles, and sodium iodide also for Mayers. Now, what's different is that for coals, it's used for Celestine blue with Celestine blue, which is another basic dye. Okay, and Mayer's is used as a sustain for cytoplasmic glycogen as a progressive and regressive stain. Okay, next we have iron hematoxylin. We have Weigert's or Heidenhain's hematoxylin. Um, we use mordants on hematoxylins, the types of hematoxylins, and usually it is an iron based metal or an iron based reagent that is used as a mordant. So ferric ammonium chloride as a mordant for Weigert's, and it's a standard iron hematoxylin in the laboratory when demonstrating muscle fibers and connective tissue. Heidenhain's hematoxylin iron hematoxylin is made by has a mordant that uses ferric ammonium sulfate. Is it different from Weigert's hematoxylin? It's not. So you don't need to remember. All you need to remember is the mordant for these two. Okay, now we have eosin. So you remember that there's eosin Y, eosin B, eosin S. So this will help you guys out in understanding those things. So if it's eosin Y, it's yellowish in color and it's most commonly used. I think that's the one that they use in hematology. The bluish, sorry. Eosin Y is most commonly used in histopathology. Eosin B or bluish hematoxylin is a deep red color that is used in HEMA. Okay? Ethyl hematoxylin or eosin S is alcohol soluble. Okay? And I and if I'm not mistaken, that's the one that they use for parasitology studies. Okay? Next, we're going into the final steps of SSM. I think this is the final step rather of histopathology or of the tissue processing rather. Adhesives. We use adhesives as a mounting medium. Okay, and adhesives are essential and require exposure of sections to alkalis and acids. So we don't use adhesives anymore, mainly because they cause look at some of the reagents here. Mayer's egg albumin, dried albumin, gelatin, formaldehyde, and starch paste. What do you think is the most common? What do you think is the main disadvantage of using this type um, of of reagents? Anybody? Anybody know? You can raise your hands. Come on. Tingnan nyo sila lahat, oh. Anong common sa kanila? They look like what? These things sound like they are ingredients, right? 'Di ba? Egg albumin, dried albumin, gelatin, starch paste, 'di ba? So anong ibig sabihin? Hindi siya forever, 'di ba? Kasi wala naman talagang forever. Mas mabilis silang mabulok, 'di ba? Therefore, pag ilagay mo siya sa sample mo, may chance na magkaroon ng mold formation, 'di ba? So yun yung pinaka problem sa kanila. Okay? So, kaya yan ang inuna ko. Actually, mounting media ang inuuna usually sa discussion. Pero dito, mas maganda kasi hindi siya ginagamit. And board exam wise, ang tinatanong sa inyo is what? Yung mangyayari kapag ginamit nyo siya. 'Di ba? Or yung disadvantages. Yun yung usual na tinatanong sa board exams. Okay? So, if you want to go in depth on this one, I'll try my best to hasten it with you guys still retaining a bit of information. So Mayer's egg albumin is the most common. It is glycerin is the clearing agent, not the clearing agent that we talked about earlier, but it's a clearing agent to prepare the media for mounting. Okay, it's to prepare the media for mounting. Okay, glycerin para ano siya, para madulas. Okay? Para mabilis kailangan mag-mix kasi siya sa mounting media, yung glycerin. Thymol crystal is the preservative. Para siyang amoy menthol, yung thymol na yan. Okay? Napakaluma na niyan. Nakalagay na yan doon sa museum namin doon sa sa dati kong school sa Pilipinas. Naka-museum na yung mga yan ngayon. Alright? Ito yung important sa ating lahat, class. Mounting media. This is added to the slide before the application of a cover slip for protection. Okay? So you have aqueous mounting media and you have resinous mounting media. Which do you think is the most important? Which do you think is better? There's no one is better. Nothing is better. It depends on what type of laboratory you have, what type of clients do you have, and what type of patients you are using, or what type of patients would require the usage of these types of media. So, for example, the majority of your patients are like pap smears. I would rather you use aqueous media. Okay, majority of the patient population has cancers, and the slides that you are preparing can be seen by can be viewed by future generations of pathologists and medical technology students. I would say you use a resin. Okay, so what's the difference? So for routine work, I think the best one is water. Low refractive index, it evaporates quickly, and temporary mounting. Okay? Water talaga, sir. Yeah, aqueous siya eh. Glycerin has a high refractive index, 1.46. Not really used in the clinical laboratory because, again, it is subjected to mold. Ferrous media has a refractive index of 1.4. It's made of gum arabic, which dissolves in water and forms a clear liquid. Apathy medium and Brunn's fluid for frozen sections. Okay? So all you need to remember is Brunn's fluid for some frozen sections. Next, resinous mounting media. We use Canada balsam, DPX, XAM, and clarite. So what we use in the labs in Saudi Arabia where last worked is DPX. Hindi nga nila tinatawag na mounting media yan eh. Manuel, add DPX. Ganun lang ang isasabi nila sa akin. Hindi nila tinatawag na mounting media yan. Add DPX. Kasi small tissues lang ginagamit namin. Now, what I want you guys to remember is Canada balsam, which is extracted from a tree, Abus balsamea. Okay, and it's common in the Philippines. I think I've seen that in the Philippines, Canada balsam. The only difference between everything here is the refractive index, but I don't want you guys to remember that. That's not going to be asked in the board exam. That's just to make things interesting or to challenge yourself. Okay, these are again more discussions about stains. I want you guys to pay close attention to which ones are positive, which are what results you're going to look at when you're talking about stains. So stains for carbohydrates, for PAS with diastase, carmine. These are things that are important. Langhans is obsolete. This is usually the reason being is that it it's not permanent, as well as it's very old, and the stains nobody mass produces them because of the many disadvantages. Okay, fresh frozen azure A, metachromatic staining. So again, I want you guys to focus on this. This is mostly memory work. I know I know I don't want to I don't want you guys to memorize, but that is the reality of clinical sorry, histopathology. You have to memorize certain things. So periodic shift has a positive result of red or magenta. The nuclei remains blue. Okay? PAS with diastase is the method of choice for glycogen demonstration. Nuclei is blue-black, glycogen is red. Control is only red nuclei are stained. The control usually is a red nuclei stain. Okay, best carmine, the one we were talking about earlier, is again for glycogen demonstration, and you will see a blue or greenish blue color when you're using Harris hematoxylin as the counter stain. Langhans, I told you all about that later earlier. Fresh frozen azure, metachromatic staining for glycosaminoglycans. Glycosaminoglycans is um, present in liver samples for patients with, I think, cystic fibrosis, and the background and tissue background remains blue. If you see glycosaminoglycans, it is red, purple, and the background is blue. They will ask you questions about which of the following, what type of stain is this? Okay, they will ask you questions about what type of stain this is. Metachromatic toluidine blue. Again, it's for glycosaminoglycans. Alcian blue is another one. Again, it's for glycosaminoglycans. So combined Alcian blue PAS technique can be used to detect neutral mucin, okay, and acid mucin. Acid mucin remains blue. Neutral mucin is magenta. Nuclear remains pale blue. Okay, as with any of the other things that I mentioned. Mucicarmine tests is a carmine stain that, or sorry, a carmine stain, sorry, that uses that stains mucins when it produces a red color and background is blue. Sorry, the nuclear remains blue and the background remains unstained. Hale's dialyzed iodine technique is another way to detect acid mucin. This time, the color is dark blue. So if your laboratory has these type of stains, why do you think why is there so many? Do you think they use all of this at once? Actually, they some of them they have just to confirm the presence. Okay, so for example, um, here in Nebraska Medicine, they have music carmine most of the time, right? Routine work for the detection of mucins. Sorry, combined Alcian blue and PAS rather. They have one here. So if they have, because we sent the samples, that's why I know. So since we're doing Alcian blue PAS combination or collaboration, we send it to a laboratory that does a different test or a different staining technique to confirm the presence of mucins. Okay? So it would be sent to either to Utah or to the University of Texas. Ganun ang ginagawa dito. Ganun ang ginagawa. Okay? And I've not seen that in the Philippines. I've seen that in, I think in Saudi Arabia, and I think my friends from Dubai also do that. They send their samples to either Germany or France to correlate the results if they are comparative with each other or rather congruent with each other. But if they are different from each other, they have to contact the sending laboratory and check whether or not whether or not there might be a problem with the pre-analytic and the analytic considerations of the sectioning. Kaya nga ang trabaho natin is FDC. Okay? Interpretation lies with the doctors. Okay? It's all for the doctors. It's not us. Okay? We have knowledge, but it's not all us. Okay? Now, want you guys to remember also the Sudans. Okay? So in Sudan, you have Sudan Black B or SBB. It's the most sensitive. Lipid stain black. The nuclei remains red. Okay? Sudan 4 or Charlock R stains mainly triglycerides. And again, it turns them red, but the nuclear remains blue-black. Right? Sudan Black B, black itself from the name itself, black ang color. Charlock R, R for red. Okay? Triglycerides. So taba lang yung tinitingnan nila. Oil red O or oro D stains mostly fats. Okay? Oro D or oil red O with dextrine rather, or indextrine stains fats. Okay? Again, these are histochemical stains. Next, stains for protein, enzymes, and nucleic acids. Alkaline fast green stains the histones and proteins green. What's the histones? These are what? Nucleic acids. Or sorry, um, combined forms of nucleic acids, not just nucleic acids. Gamma calcium. Gamma calcium, not to be confused with Gamma methenamine silver. I don't want you guys to forget about that one. We'll talk about that later when we discuss microorganisms. Gamma calcium stains alkaline phosphatase activity, which turns brownish black. Okay? Then the nuclear remains green. Fulgent stain is used for DNA. DNA stains red. The cytoplasm is green. Methyl green pionine is for mRNA and DNA. Now, nothing much on that one. We stain connective tissues also. Gamoris silver impregnation stain is something that you need to remember. Gamoris silver stain impregnation technique or staining technique can be used to demonstrate fungal, fungal, fungal structures. Okay. We also use Van Guyson stains for collagen, and collagen as a fibrous tissue that stains fibrous connective tissue rather that stains pink and deep red. Okay. Muscles, on the other hand, stains yellow. Okay. Next, Masson trichrome stain for collagen. Collagen remains blue and mucus. Collagen and mucus remain blue. Keratin, RBC, and muscles are red, and nuclei are blue-black. Okay? Elastic fiber. Weigert's again. Diba? Weigert's na naman class. Diba? Weigert's elastic stains elastic fibers. It stains dark black to dark blue to blue-black. Verhoef stain is for elastic fibers. That turns black. Nuclear turns black. Collagen is red. Yellow for cytoplasm. Orcine, Gamorre's aldehyde fusion. Again, these are things that are used for elastic fibers. I'm not gonna focus on that one because they don't usually ask that. We have tests. We have stains for fibrin, which is Mallory's Patah or PTHA. Okay, they asked this in one board exam. Once before. I think it was in the when I think graduated and took my board exam. The next batch they asked that question, so that's why I always remember Mallory's Patah. Okay, I've never actually known what it is, but I know in the exams in the Philippines they will ask you questions about fibrin stain. Okay, so don't forget about Mallory's Patah. Okay, it's not Patah. It stands for something else, but for the purpose of discussion and in your board exam, I don't want you guys to remember unnecessary ideas or understand unnecessary ideas. I just want you to remember Mallory's Patah, fibrin. Okay? For amyloid, amyloid is what? What disease are we detecting? Amyloidosis, of course. It's abnormal if you have a lot of amyloid in your tissues. So we use Congo red, we use grams iodine, Congo red, methyl violet, and or crystal violet. Okay, muscle and bones, trichrome stain, malorpita, hydrogen ions, methoxylin, lissamine, fast red. For bones, it's Schroll's picrothioneine method. Not very important. They didn't ask that one. That's why I didn't put anything in it. Stains for bone marrow and blood elements. I think you will have this in your board exams also for not just for histopathology but also um, for hematology. So rapid toluidine eosine stain. We have that. We have that. It's just a one stain technique that that demonstrates RBCs, the different types of WBCs as well as platelets. It's very cool. This one. Romanowski stain, Wright stain, and GEMSA stain. GEMSA is more or less done for what? Blood banking procedures. For what particular purpose? Malarial screening. Okay? Peroxidase reaction is used for the diagnosis of myeloid cells. Sorry, for the demonstration of myeloid cells. For what cases? You ask. Leukemia. Okay? Test for test for the CNS, central nervous system. The Shosky stain stains neurons, axons, and neurofibrils. Bodean stains neurofibers and nerve endings. Sieve-Munger stains is the neural tissue. No, I don't want you guys to focus on this one. I want you guys to focus on Nissel bodies, Gressel fast. Because this one was asked in the board exam. Gressel fast, Nissel, Nissel bodies. I want you guys to remember the ones that are unique. Okay, the unique ones, because these ones they can be like neurons, axons, neurofibrils. Everybody, some of them does stain in other things, right? Myelin sheets, Whiter-Pals technique, Kluver, Barrera, Luxul fast blue stain, oil stain. Okay, for astrocytes, those cells that are phagocytes, phagocytic cells in no, not they're not phagocytes, they're star cells. Basically they stain neurons in the peripheral nervous system. So we have Cajal's gold sublimate, modified Ta, and Holzer's method. Okay, so I want you guys to remember Cajal's sublimate because I've seen that not in board exams but mostly in exams that I've taken in the Philippines. Okay, test for hemosiderin. Do not forget Pearl's Prussian blue, class. The most important thing. Okay, Pearl's Prussian blue. For hemoglobin, nitroprusside. If you hear the word nitroprusside, that means that means you're testing for hemoglobin. Okay? I think one of the slides here was infected. Hang on a sec. Not infected, but rather for bile pigments, don't forget Faucher's technique. FO, yeah, that's the one in the bottom. Faucher's technique. Okay, bile pigments. Faucher's technique. And I want you guys to, Mellin's technique also. You might be familiar with these techniques. If you focused on, if you heard these chemicals before or reagents before, you might be, oh, sir, I think I've heard that in clinical microscopy, right? Have you heard about nitroprusside being used for, right, being used for hemoglobin, right? Presence of hemoglobin. For bile pigments, you use Faucher's test. The result is a play of colors if there's a presence of bile. Do you guys remember that? Oh, sorry if you don't. Melon's test, sorry, I forgot Melon's test also. Okay, so for lipofuscin, again, you'll hear Gamori's test, but don't be confused. Most of the time, they will ask that. For melanin, do not forget argentaphinoma cells. Okay, for melanin, you want to demonstrate argentaphinoma cells. This was asked in a board exam before, and the test is Mason's Fontana technique. Okay, Mason's Fontana. Okay, we want to test. We want to look for argentaphin cells. I think this is the only histopathology related to diagnoses or diagnostics that was asked in the board exams. Other than that, you'll see pheochromocytoma, which is going to be asked in the board exams for pathologists. So that's not for us. Okay, argentaphinoma cells or argentaphinoma granules. Okay, next. Next thing I want you guys to remember is for calcium. Calcium deposits can be demonstrated by silver nitrate. Okay, it will produce uh, um, it will produce calcium nitrate. This reaction was demonstrated by Dr. von Kosa. Okay, he's a German scientist. I think a German or a Swedish. I don't know. No, I no, a Polish, I think, somewhere in Europe. But yeah, silver nitrate. When you add that to calcium carbonate, it will form calcium nitrate, which is the principle of the von Kosa stain. Okay, for copper, for copper, for copper, rhodanine technique. Okay, Use the Rodanin technique. Okay. Next, we go to lipofuscin. Lipofuscin is demonstrated with Mallory's fuchsin stain, aldehyde fuchsin stain. So it's easy for you guys to remember. Okay. Wait, is that the same thing? Oh, sorry. We're going to the next one. We go to the next one. This is my stains for microorganisms. So again, Rams is the most common. Zil-Nielsen is the hot method, right? Wide fight technique is for mycobacteria, like Mycobacterium leprae and Nocardia. Oramin rhodamin or AR is for mycobacteria in general because it detects um, the mycolic acid. Tolwydin blue and Cresol, while Cresol acetate is for H. pylori. I'm not gonna go delve into this because it's not gonna. It's more or less for microbiology. Okay. For fungi, don't forget methenamine silver. Always remember if it's methenamine silver, it's going to be for that one. Okay. Viruses, you use floxine and tartrazine method for viral inclusions, and what was invented by Landrums. HBsAg is for using Orcine method. For protozoa, again, I mentioned earlier, gem sustain. Okay, but don't forget that you can also use trichrome staining. Okay, this was a technique that was this is the end of our lecture for histopathology. I'd like to thank my professor for providing me with information on this one. This was prepared by both him and me. I've added some stuff onto this before I made it my own, but I don't want to be disrespectful to my previous professor. And he always said these few words: if you have problems, you'll need you'll be needing a fixative. If you're not sure what to do, you need what you need is an embedding medium. If you're lost, you have to do labeling. If you're sad, you do staining to give more colors to your life. If you're happy, you add preservative. That is from my professor, Edison Ramos. He is a professor from the Medical Laboratory Science, College of Medical Laboratory Science in Arellano University, which is my resource for providing stains. Okay. Anyways, don't forget this one. This will inspire you in studying. I hope that this inspires. This thing is the most. It's that one of the things that I remembered about Sir Edison is this one. Okay. So hindi ako nagnanakaw. Always nagbibigay ako ng shoutout kapag when there is then a need for that one. Okay? Anyways, thank you so much for listening to that one. And I think it's time for our break. We finished a little bit early, right, class? No, Patrick? Mabilis ako ngayon, no? Kasi hindi ko kayo ginigisa, no? Isa-isa. No?
Yes, sir.
Diba? Kasi promise ko kay Sir Marco, dalawang two in one, di ba? Siyempre, kailangan mag-deliver. Okay? So, what are we going to do? Well, I'm going to send you guys to break, and then when you guys come back, we're going to discuss medical technology laws. Wala tayong debate kasi naman, time crunch, di ba? So, we finished a little bit early. Want you guys to come back. What's the time there in the Philippines?
11:08 AM po.
11:08. Sobra-sobra pa kayo, di ba? Okay. So, what I want you guys to, what I want, 1 hour and 30 minutes would be enough, right? Would suffice, I suppose. 1 hour, 30 minutes.
Yes po.
Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'll be putting a timer in the shared screen. Okay. Okay. Maglagay tayo ng timer. Timer. Share ako ng timer. Close ko na to. Okay. So, hopefully, you've learned something about histopathology. If you want an in-depth discussion, Moyo have been posting the lectures that I've done previously, and you guys will have a better understanding of some of the things that might be confusing to you. Diba, sir? If you have questions, because this was a collaborative effort between me and my previous professor. Okay? I want you guys to get the best education that you can get. Okay? So with that in mind, 1 hour and 30 minutes will begin. And I want you guys to be well fed and ready for our next schedule because for our next class we'll be discussing again medical technology laws and bioethics in a 4 hour marathon. Okay, I'll see you guys in a bit.
Thank you po. See
Thank you
you.
po. Thank you po.
Thank you po, sir.
I
Thank you
of
po.
course. Mass and spontaneous.